One big team. One big team. One big team.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 65 of Riot Act, the alternative music podcast with me, Stephen Hill, and this young man here, Remfry Deadman. Give him a wave on the old YouTube channel.
Hello,
thanks for listening if you're listening on the usual podcast platforms. Thanks for watching if you're watching on our YouTube channel, and if you are, you can probably see that we're in a slightly different location today.
And echoey.
Thanks if
More
you're
echoey
listening
location.
live on Twitch, is it? On the Earache Records
Yes,
site?
that is absolutely A-OK correct. Although, to be honest, I don't know if they'll be able to see us, but hello if you're watching on Twitch.
I know they can probably hear us, and they can definitely see our idiot guests this week, because the reason we've come out here is we are joined by, or we are joining, Matt and Tom, aka Haggard Cat, who are in currently, as we speak, 3.5 hours into your 24-hour shift inside the confines of a small concrete block somewhere in the outskirts of East London.
That's about right. Yeah, here we are.
Hang on.
What time did you say it was?
3.5 hours, is that it?
All right, don't tell them the time.
Okay,
we're not allowed to tell
them
you the time.
Wait, I feel like it's more like 4.5 hours.
No.
Maybe it is.
No, it's closer to 3.5.
I mean, the thing is, this is going out on Friday, so I wouldn't worry about it because you'll be out by the time this actually
This will
goes
be
out.
a sort of eulogy to you two,
eating
because you two aren't going to survive this, clearly.
Yeah, well, we'll talk a little bit to the boys in a second. Before we start, this week on the show, we're going to be reviewing new albums from Refused, Mark Lanegan, Alcest, We Lost the Sea, and Clipping. We obviously want to give a big shout out to our friends, our buddies, our compadres at Musicism. Musicism.net is where you need to go to if you want to become a better musician or come up with just wacky ideas. Do they come up with wacky ideas in Musicism?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Absolutely moronic ideas such as this, I'm
So
sure they come up with. Yeah.
You're going to sign up for that, boys? It's $9.99 a month.
No, I'm already amazing.
Don't do drumming anyway, Tom, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. They do tutorials for guitarists, for singers, and for producers, and you can get that for $9.99 a month or 25% off if you put the code RIOT in capital letters in the checkout.
I mean, it's been 2 weeks since I've been here, and hearing that again has been one of the most glorious moments of my entire life.
It's pretty good, wasn't it?
Thank
so let's just chat to the chaps. So, boys, would you like to explain in your own words just quite what it is that you're doing in this box?
Fucking no, do I?
I have no idea, to be honest. Came up with a silly idea to do a music video to go along with our song.
Right.
So yeah, we have a song that's all about the shitty political situation that we're in right now.
Yes.
Which everyone's bored of hearing about.
I've heard it a number of times.
It's well, I meant the situation rather than the
Oh, the
song,
situation.
Remfry.
yeah,
Song's
that as well.
excellent,
Yeah, no, the song's
isn't
great.
it?
Yep.
Good answer.
Right answer. So yeah, we thought we'd do something that kind of matched what our sentiments were there, and then it kind of turned into a bit of a 24-hour stunt, which emphasised kind of the effect that Brexit's going to have on touring musicians like ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of both doing a cynical marketing ploy and
A metaphorical piece of
a
genius.
metaphorical piece of protesting,
Right.
all in one tidy package.
Do you think locking yourself in this box is going to have any effect on the outcome in 9 days' time or however long it is?
Well, the way I kind of see it is the more people that kind of do kind of weird things against the grain that are not expected, the better in any situation like this. Like if more people did stuff that actually kind of were a bit different and were a bit weird and not the way that the government would expect you to behave, then we probably wouldn't be in this fucking mess.
Yeah. Plus, I hear Jacob Rees-Mogg is a massive fan of your debut album.
I hear he's listened to it once and liked it, yeah.
Yeah. He liked it so much that he killed a fox.
He
with
probably
all his
slept
mates,
through it, to
Probably.
be honest.
or something posh. Do you know what I mean? Well, anyway, boys, look, you're up there and we're down here.
Hi.
So we will refer to you intermittently throughout the show, if that's all right.
Yeah, don't fall
That's
asleep
great.
or anything.
Yeah. But, just know that you're in our thoughts throughout the show.
You are always in our thoughts.
Feel free to chip in at the correct moment.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah?
Go on then.
Okay, good.
Have a good podcast.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. So, let's talk about some stuff. Remfry,
Hello.
you were away last week.
I was away. I went to the land of Scandinavia. It was really good fun, along with the lads in Frontiera.
How was
Shout out
that?
Frontiera. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm absolutely shattered. I still feel really battered and bruised from the entire experience. But we went to, where did we go? We went to Copenhagen. We went to Uppsala in Sweden. We went to Gothenburg in Sweden. We went to Oslo in Norway. And we went to Helsinki in Finland.
Cool.
And it was a lovely little tour all around the place. I went to Næsblod in Oslo, Norway, which is the shop that Euronymous set up.
Did all the naughty things.
Did all the naughty things. I saw the basement. I sneaked downstairs, and
Yeah.
I don't think the door was meant to be open, but it was open. So I sneaked in and poked my head in and felt very much like I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Did it stink of death?
It didn't stink. What, the person or the concept?
Both. Either or.
Slightly disrespectful, I suppose. I don't care. Yeah, no, it didn't. It just smelled of like sort of. It smelled very similar to the room that we're in now, actually, and was quite kind of as echoey and odd. But yeah, there was a very strange feeling being in there. I sent you a photo of Clawfinger from that shop.
Well, a CD. They weren't.
A CD,
actual
not the
band.
band. No. It was quite surprising. I suppose because you just assume you associate it with the black metal scene. You just think, oh, it's just going to be loads and loads and loads of black metal. To be clear, they claim that they have the largest collection of black metal anywhere in the world, which is probably true. It's quite big. There's a lot of it. But I was quite surprised that sort of, they had quite an excessive punk section, industrial and all that kind of thing. And like I was seeing like Skinny Puppy CDs, which I'd never seen before and stuff like that. But it was very good and I spent too much money there. That was very cool.
Go on, tell us what you bought.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be that interesting, but I bought a couple of Jizu records. I bought
That's
that
interesting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm interested in that.
I brought that Nasum record that you
Northern.
had.
Human
Northern.
2.0.
Right, yep, that's the one.
It's a good record. That.
What else did I
You
get?
listen to that yet?
No, I've been
Mate.
listening to a lot of records since we've been back.
That's true.
I have been listening to new releases. I haven't listened to anything that I bought, annoyingly. What else did I get? I can't remember. Off the top of my head. You put me on the spot.
I know I did. It's
Elder.
silly of me to. Oh,
I
you got
bought
the
an
Elder.
Elder album,
Yeah.
which I didn't have. One of their earlier ones, Law, I think it was.
Elder are good. You're quite right, Tom.
Elder, something from the old box there.
You like
eh?
Elder, do you, Tom?
Yeah, it's a good band.
Yeah. Better than Brexit?
Pardon?
They better than Brexit?
Yeah, they're better than Brexit.
Good. Wow.
Oh, that's good.
Heady praise indeed.
Yeah.
Put
that on the
stick. So you had a good time?
I had a really fantastic time. I very much recommend Norway and Oslo, I should say, and Helsinki. Absolutely beautiful cities. I mean, I didn't know how much you'd want me to wang on. I assumed you wouldn't want me to wang on about
No,
it
I
too
do.
much, so-
I've not been to Scandinavia for a couple of years. I love it.
It's incredible.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's really
It is
good.
incredible. It is genuinely cold, and it is very expensive. As a lot of people say, I tell you what, I spent what I worked out was £4.60 on a bottle of fizzy pop
Yeah, mate, they'll get you for that.
from a 7-Eleven.
But hey, everybody's rich over there, so it's all right.
Yeah, they're all oil barons, apparently. I don't know if that's true. Maybe that's racist. I apologise if it is. But yeah, there we go. So, yeah.
Well, good. Well, mate, while you were out there, on Sunday, I went to Brixton Academy to go and see Killswitch Engage.
Oh dear. I'd just come back, but that's fine.
You had just come back, yeah. Is that what you're saying, oh dear, about?
No, I was saying about Killswitch Engage.
Right, okay, yeah, okay. The first of many disagreements tonight, I'm sure. So I saw a little bit of Revocation first, who, this is what I thought was cool about Killswitch playing Brixton. I mean, I think they have probably, their profile has dropped off a tiny, tiny little bit over the last couple of records. We weren't keen, and even, I wasn't massively keen on the last records, even as a Killswitch Engage fan.
Or the one before, as far as I recall.
No, I think the new one's better than the one before. But yeah, the last couple haven't really sort of done it for me, to be perfectly honest. But I always think they're great live, and they've got, at this point, a really stellar back catalogue of, classic songs from that genre. And I think it's been a long time since I've seen them headline a show of their own. And them doing Brixton, it being, it was packed. It was really, really packed. And I did miss the first band. I apologise to them, but they brought Revocation out with them. Now, I thought this was really cool because, for a start, Revocation, not a particular, were very good. Not a particularly metalcore band, much more of a sort of brutal death metal band, and always cool to see that thing on a big stage. And also, not a big band either. You know, at this point, you go to Brixton Academy to sell that many tickets. Usually, you would assume that some sort of package bill has to be put together. But fair play to Killswitch Engage to obviously sold enough tickets early on to go, fuck it, we're going to just bring bands out with us that we really, really like. And I think people...
Or maybe just said, fuck it, we're going to bring out bands who we like, regardless of tickets.
Yeah, maybe.
Occasionally that happens.
Yeah, that does occasionally happen. But I think, you know, like looking at it, it obviously sold very well. And to see Revocation playing in front of a massive, massive crowd was really cool. And
what sort of cap do they normally do? I don't know Revocation that well.
Oh, over here, they... Underworld at best, I would have thought.
Oh, right, okay, cool.
Yeah. So, you know.
So somewhere 10 times the size, literally.
Yes, basically, yeah. And they were very good. I enjoyed them. Killswitch Engage, sort of two things. When they first came on, it hammered home two things to me, which is one, how good a live band they are, but also two, how little I've paid attention to the last couple of records. Because for about 3 songs, I went, I don't know what this song is.
Right.
I don't even know what it is.
Sounds
So
the same
that
as their others, though, doesn't it?
You what?
Sounds the same as their others, though, doesn't it?
No, not as good as their others. No,
Not as good, but basically the same.
but sort of similar-esque. But you know, hey, there's going to be again like a band resting on their laurels. We'll be talking about that quite a lot this show. So yeah, I think Killswitch Engage. Obviously, they've got every right to play their new material, even if I'm not a massive fan of it. And there are a couple of the new ones that, hearing them live, sort of in the mid part of the set, scattered amongst some of the big hitters, I thought are actually, they sounded much better than they did on record. And it sort of made me go, oh, I should go back and maybe give that another spin, that record. And I'm sure I will at some point.
Okay, I was about to ask, have you done that yet? But
Yeah, I haven't done that yet because it's just been busy and, you know. But, I mean, I have to say, for the first sort of 50 minutes, I was like, this is good. This is pretty good. The last half an hour, they just slammed out hit after hit, like massive song. I think it was something like My Curse, into This Absolution, into End of Heartache, into... They dropped like My Last Serenade really, really early in the set, so it wasn't that. Strength of the Mind, they ended on the cover of Holy Diver, which was brilliant. I've never seen Jesse sing that before. Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of the last sort of 6 or 7 songs was just kind of, if you are a fan of that period of metalcore, is kind of manna from heaven. Like, do you know what I mean? It reminded me of kind of, you understand why they're the biggest, they became the biggest one of those bands. Because in a venue like that, I can imagine a lot of bands that I really like, someone like A Darkest Hour, for example, their songs would kind of fall flat, are so taut and difficult that they may be not quite right for that setting. Whereas Killswitch Engage, those songs are so massive.
I will agree.
Like My Curse or The End of Heartache, it's just so massive.
They certainly know how to write a chorus.
Yeah, big tunes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I walked out of there feeling rather elated. And you get that cover of Holy Diver is
it's great.
Is super fun.
Great
so,
fun to play.
Yeah,
band cover. It's
and
great fun.
got an absolutely insane reaction. So yeah, Killswitch Engage. Kind of they're a weird one, aren't they? Because
you do seem slightly tepid about the whole evening as a whole, though.
it wasn't incredible. Do you know what I mean? I thought the last half hour was amazing, was really amazing. And they were great. They're always great. They're just sort of consistently what they are. I mean, I'm not going to be walking away from that gig talking about it being one of the best gigs of the year or anything, but it was really good. And they're the sort of band, I realised sort of halfway through that I was like, this is a band for nostalgia for me, really. You know what I mean? I don't even kind of recognise a lot of the songs of the last couple of albums. Strength of the Mind actually being one of the few that I do think is really cool, that they played towards the end. It was good. Like, it was really, really good. But it's not, when you think of some of the shows and some of the bands I've seen this year, I don't really think it's quite as comparable to that. And that's possibly because the first half of the set lent on material that I'm not as keen on.
Shall I tell you about one of the best gigs of the year?
Go on then.
And so I watched it from afar at the Camden Assembly, formerly the Barfly in London. Tiny, tiny, tiny venue, and they were playing their debut album in full. Now, I'd already seen this show, and also I'm generally not a fan of album shows, as we've discussed on this show quite a lot.
Yeah.
I absolutely... Well, there's very few that I can count. I can count on one hand the ones that I like, that I've really, really, really enjoyed. So I was a little bit trepidatious when they sort of announced this, because on the one hand, the early material is the stuff that is sort of closest to my heart, On the other hand, it's an album show, and I kind of knew what they were going to play. The thing with And So I Watch You From Afar is when you get a crowd and the entire crowd are into it, and you get a very small. I mean, that's not what, a 200 cap venue, I guess, maybe 250. And they made them small on purpose, and it sold out like instantly. And the atmosphere in the room was just so sublime, and everyone was so into it. Everyone was clapping in the right places. Everyone was wooing in the right places. Everyone was just everything was just utterly perfect. And the place went off. It was just a complete and utter sweatbox. It reminded me of seeing Dillinger Escape Plan there 10 years previous, I think.
Shit.
It was...
What, that they did that matinee when...
Yeah, I went to the matinee.
Option Paralysis came out.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah.
And it just kind of made me really annoyed that, like, I mean, and So I Watch You can play bigger venues than Canberra Assembly. They're coming back in February, and they're doing South Bank Centre. But there's a lot of people who I kind of view the way that people look at instrumental music sometimes as like people who don't like subtitles in films. It's like, if you don't watch films with subtitles, you are missing out on so much stuff. And I almost feel like the same attitude is applied to, oh, well, if it doesn't have any vocals, it's not going to interest me. And I think it's a very, very stupid point of view to have, frankly, and totally ridiculous. But like, you know, I was looking back because this album's 10 years old now, and it got to number 15 in the albums of the year with Kerrang that year. Higher than Architect's Hollow Crown, just to throw that in.
They get everything right, don't they?
Rock Sound gave it 9 out of 10 when they were a good magazine. You know, I mean, like, there was a lot of praise put on it, and then I don't know, but I just think it's an absolute. There's a lot more. There's a lot more kind of passion for that band amongst its fans in a sort of cult manner than there is for most of the other bands I was reading about in that top 20 in the Kerrang list. And I think that says a lot, frankly. And yeah, I would put this up there with Ghost, with Behemoth, with, what else have I seen this year? Daughters, with Tool.
Fucking hell,
as
wow.
one of the best gigs of the year.
Jesus.
It was fucking unreal.
Yeah.
I love that band, and I pity anyone who doesn't feel music in that way.
Fair enough. Boys.
Matt. Do you want to talk about Bad Pond with me?
Yes.
Do you want to get up?
Yeah.
Here he is. Little creepy face sticking out of his hole.
Can we just talk about Bad Pond super quickly?
Sure thing.
Because you were there, weren't you?
It was great.
It was great. It was really good fun. It was at the Bush Hall in Shepherd's Bush. You've been there?
I have been there.
Lovely stuff. It's very nice. And they had my favourite things. They had what do you remember what the company was called, Matt? The video game company.
Oh, I can't remember what the company was called, but it was Ace, wasn't it? Like,
I want to call them Retro Games Arcade. I apologise if I've got that wrong, but they're based in Brighton. They basically have a load of retro video game consoles all around the Bush Hall, and you could just play them for free. It was great.
Fucking hell.
It was awesome. Whilst there was math rock happening in the background.
You can buy a thing, right? It costs like, you get it from Australia. It's 35,000 arcade games and like Super NES and Nintendo's Master System, Mega Drive games. You get it, and it's just a little box, and it's got 35,000 games on it. It costs like 100 quid.
Is it legit?
I bought one. Well, mate, I bought one, and I played Super Mario Kart. There was no sound, so I smashed it to pieces because I'm a fucking idiot. That's true.
That doesn't sound legit.
Well,
I played Mario Kart.
I wouldn't get it.
I played Mario Kart, the GameCube version, whilst Tangled Hair were playing. Sorry, Tangled Hair. I was really enjoying myself.
That's one of the best versions of Mario Kart, in my opinion.
I agree.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's good.
I agree. It is. It's probably the best, to be honest. But yeah. Maybe we should do that as a poll. What's the best version of Mario
I
Kart?
think
Mario
there's other
Kart.
things to poll this week, to be honest, but yeah.
Matt, you saw bands that I didn't see. Can you talk about
So
them?
when did you get in?
I arrived at the Clit Drip, which I want to talk about extensively.
Oh, Clit Drip were fantastic.
Yes.
So I also saw Libra,
All right.
who opened the festival, but I believe another Brighton band.
Okay.
Really young band, but like so impressive. Like really kind of soaring, like almost operatic vocals at times. Like guitar player that's clearly like influenced by like noisy like rock guitarist like Jack White kind of style music.
That's a bit of you, isn't it?
Bit of me, that. Yeah, no, it was really, really good. I was dead impressed, and especially to say that was like the first thing that was on in the day as well, so everyone was a little bit tepid. But as like you couldn't have even like they didn't even phase them. Like literally, just they took it in their stride and just turned it into like a great gig right from the get-go.
Excellent.
And with all the kind of the visuals and projections and everything that Bad Pond were doing, like you would not know what time of day it was anyway. So that could literally be like a sub-headline set or whatever. Like they were great.
Bit like you now.
I can see it's dark outside. That means it's past 7.
Is it?
Yes.
Quick word.
4 hours.
Quick word on the old visualizations. They were really fucking cool, weren't they? I don't know how they'd achieved it, but I think they put microphones on the end. No, microphones, goodness me. I think they put cameras on the end of the mic stands, maybe, and then created this weird 90s collage, I'm going to call it.
90s collage.
Does that...
Yeah, they're like kind of psychedelic like almost Windows 98 visualization.
If you imagine, you know...
Like the light grooving in a heart.
More
Video.
like, you know how the back of the Word looked all the time?
Oh, yeah.
The back of the Channel 4 Word show.
Yeah.
It was like that.
Oh,
but
nice.
like all the time. It was cool.
And then blended with like the actual like video footage of people playing like kind of psychedelically. So there was kind of like a kaleidoscope sort of effect for the whole thing.
It was really cool. It was quite, I mean, even... It made one beer feel like 3, to be honest.
One
but yeah.
beer generally was 3, though, wasn't it, Remfry?
Go on, tell us me about In Technicolor as well. Did you see Intech?
So I saw Intech after Libra, and that's the first time that I've seen them since November last year.
Okay.
Which is when me and Tom toured with those guys for a few dates. And they were really great. They played a load of new songs. They've got a new album on the way, I believe.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I actually have an advance of the new album, and it is the best stoner album of 2020.
Wow. Wow.
Should probably found out whether you were allowed to say
I know.
that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but fuck it, I'll say it. They can
Anyway,
bleep
we'll
it.
find out. I'll cut that if it's
Nothing
not.
about this episode is really kind of real, though, is it?
You can't
They're a
cut
fucking
it because
box.
it's just possibly gone out on live stream.
Oh shit, that's a good point.
So if there's something
Sorry.
you can't say
Steve,
tonight
don't
this
worry,
week,
no one's watching the live
I don't
stream.
think I'm pretty sure they're not attached to a label at the moment, so I don't think anyone would actually care. The band
they
wouldn't care.
might care.
I don't think the band would care.
Remfry, they are.
Oh, are they?
And I know the label, but I'm not going to tell you because maybe we're not supposed to tell anyone.
Ah, sorry.
It's a good label, though.
Okay, let's move quickly on. Can we talk about Clit Drip? Because loads of people at Art Tangent went on and on to me about how, did you see Clit Drip? Did you see Clit Drip? Amazing. I don't know why everyone, people just kept coming up to me and saying Clit Drip, basically, which was an odd sensation and why I think it's one of the best festivals in the entire world. But I didn't see their set at Art Tangent, and then seeing them at Bad Pond, I realised that I have been missing out massively. How do you describe Clit Drip, Matt?
How would I describe them?
3-piece?
There's kind of like math rock blended with like dance pop.
Yes.
Like, but with like the kind of like the electronic, like the mad electronic noises that their guitar player manages to make, like it kind of gives it. I don't know. There's bits of like dubstep in there as well. And
Yeah.
It's madness. But
It's all
when
done live as well, though.
It's all done live.
That's definitely
And
the
there's
key.
just 3 of them, and it just it's mental. But they are definitely like one of my kind of new finds of the year. Clit Drip, I think they're great.
They sound like, I mean, if I was a bad reviewer, I'd say they sound like Tim Westwood on acid mixed with Rage Against the Machine. But I'm better than that. On acid. But
That sounds horrific.
they're really good.
Right,
I think
okay.
you'd really like it. A lot of
Okay.
punk spirit. Like, I went over to their guitarist's pedal board because I'm that guy, and he had 15 pedals, and there were lots and lots of pedals there, and it was
Were there?
exciting. Yeah. lots of
Wow,
pedals.
15.
15.
Bloody hell.
It's too many
He
pedals.
Must love pedals.
Yeah, he did, but that's how he makes all the noises, you see.
Yeah, of course.
They were absolutely amazing. Who else do I want to talk about really quickly? Did you see Sewer?
Sir were fantastic.
Sewer, brilliant. Yeah, we reviewed their EP not too long ago. Didn't we?
We did, yeah.
They're just a great band, and I still really want them to make a record now because they're making a lot of EPs. But yeah, they're becoming like a really, really, really solid live act, and it's just really nice to see them now that I know the songs a little bit more. Colossal Squid, which is Adam Betts, drummer of Three Chat Tigers.
I remember you talking to me about this is his like drum solo project, right?
Basically, but like that does not do it justice. I mean, he's
Hey mate, you said it. Fucking hell.
he's he's wiring up different drums to different sounds, and then he triggers them with the drums, and then I mean, can you help me out with this, Matt?
I think you've covered it, mate. it was drums.
What's drums? But he
For
makes
fans of drums
Three Chat Tigers, I suppose,
and drums.
and drums, yeah. And
Whiplash, the band.
yeah, yeah. I was stood there mesmerised. I was having a lovely time. Is there any? Oh, Palm Reader. We review Palm Reader all the time.
So-
Can you review Palm Reader, Matt? Because we
I-
do it all the time.
It was kind of like a greatest hits set, wasn't it? From
Yes.
Palm Reader, like
Yes.
there was bits from like all albums, and yeah, they were great as always. They were always incredible.
They were reliably brilliant.
They're
I
like
would
one
say.
of the best live bands. Like I'd say, like not even in the UK, like that there is at the minute. They're great.
Ooh.
Big words.
Big words.
Big words.
That sounds fun. I
Yeah.
haven't seen Palm Reader for a long time.
Palm Reader were fantastic.
Wow, I
Yeah, they
know
were really
that.
good.
I don't
And
need
then-
to see them or not to know that.
And then it finished with Physics House Band, who are just like the best instrumental Mars Volta band out there in the world ever.
Okay.
Which sounds slightly like like. Are you a Physics House Band fan, Matt?
Yeah, I think they're great. Like it's not always kind of my cup of tea. I really have to kind of be proper in the mood for it, especially like after I've just seen a really fantastic Palm Reader set.
They do go off on wibbly wobbly wobs quite a lot.
But they're great, and the thing that they do, they're really great at it.
Yeah, they are astonishing. We did that Death Sequence EP.
We did,
Do you recall that?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's good.
Really, really like live. It's just brain enhancing.
Brain enhancing.
Deary me,
Enhancing. Fucking hell.
My brain.
brain expanding.
Well, that sounds like fun, chaps.
It was really good fun. Yeah,
Had a
really
good
good
time.
fun.
Did
Got
you?
really drunk.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything, Tom? Why it feels like Matt sort of...
No, I didn't go.
Okay. Right. Me neither. You like drums though, don't you?
Not really, but yeah.
Oh. Okay. Right, let's do some review.
Adam Betts.
Well done, Adam Betts.
Right, okay, let's do some reviews then, shall we, chaps?
We're going to talk some hip hop now, so you can go away for a bit if you'd like.
I'll fuck right off.
Hold on a second. Let's start with Clipping. The album is called There Existed an Addiction to Blood. This came out last week. It is the fourth album from the experimental noise hip-hop outfit. I have to be honest with
Is
you,
it
Remfry.
fourth? I thought it was the third.
It's the fourth. Sub Pop are calling it the fourth. It's out on Sub Pop right
Yeah.
now. They released their debut album, which is actually considered a mixtape rather than... I'm not sure what the difference is.
I'm under the impression, isn't it, that like mixtape is just an excuse to get even more listens on Spotify and you just fart something out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that's what they did, but...
I mean,
But I
I'm
don't
not
know.
the expert and
no,
I'm not the person
I'm
to
not
ask,
sure. But anyway, I think it's now generally considered their debut album.
Okay.
So this is... And this has been marketed as the fourth album by Clipping.
Okey-dokey.
I'm new to this band. Somebody actually tipped me off on the download forum. I think he's called Mr. Duck. So
Mr.
thank you,
Duck.
Mr. Duck, on the download forum for saying we should cover this. Because I've had a couple of people actually since then as well go, you should listen to Clipping. And I just thought, let me see if it's worth the hype. Now, if you're not familiar with them, you boys familiar with this band, Clipping?
Yeah, I know Clipping.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've not listened to him a huge amount recently, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll come back to you in a little bit. So Clipping are a trio, as I mentioned, consisting of producers William Hudson and Jonathan Snipes and rapper David Diggs. Now, as I mentioned, they signed after their first album to Sub Pop. This is their third album on Sub Pop. People were wondering whether or not there would be this many Clipping records because actually David was cast in 2015 in the musical Hamilton, the hit musical, and won a Grammy and a Tony in
Yeah.
the process.
Which I had no idea.
Which is
until
pretty
like the first time I heard this record, I had no idea, and then started doing some research after hearing it for the first time, and I was like, oh, holy shit!
Yeah.
Fair play, you're versatile.
He knows his stuff. This to me is very much an extension of the kind of long forgotten horrorcore genre of hip hop.
Can you give us some examples of the horrorcore genre?
Ghetto Boys. I think there's a couple of the guys from the Wu-Tang Clan's solo projects, which would be kind of considered horrorcore. There was that guy Necro who came out about a decade ago, who wasn't really very good, but I think he tried to call himself death rap or something, but I think he got lumped in with the horrorcore thing as well. Okay. There's a couple of labels, I believe, that kind of specialize in it, but it's at this point it's much more of an underground thing than it would have been. But it's basically taking kind of horror movie ideas and tropes and ideologies and kind of forcing them into rap music. But where this is different, this record for me, is the two producers, as I said, the two guys, Hudson and Snipes, who have a background in industrial, electronic, experimental noise rock, and they were kind of making that music alone by themselves before this band started. This band actually started as a kind of instrumental band, and then they brought a rapper in later on.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, I think we said it just sort of quickly yesterday when we were chatting Remfry. I'm not sure that just calling this a hip-hop album really tells you anywhere near the story of what this record actually is. I think this has got as much to do with, as I said, noise rock, Throbbing Gristle, bits of Perturbator, John Carpenter, Daughters. I mean, if you go on their Spotify related artists, there are bands like Horror and
Horror's on there,
and JPEG Mafia. There's also Code Orange. There's also, as I said, Linguita Ignota. There's also
these are on the related artists.
Yeah, on radio, on the thingy radio. So somebody and some people who are into that sort of thing are also listening to Clipping, and I can I can absolutely understand why. Do you want to start chatting about this?
Yeah, I think I do agree with all of that to an extent. I think that the foundation. I think as soon as you get someone of the quality of David Diggs, rapping over stuff like that, it's going to have a massive hip hop flavor, and you would. If you wanted to describe it in a couple of words, experimental hip hop would probably be it. But there's absolutely elements of dark wave or industrial. There is definitely industrial here, and noiseescapes and so on and so forth on it. And certainly, I think this album starts extremely well. Nothing is safe is
a proper Halloween John Carpenter homage.
Yeah, this is an anthem. It's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant song. And we've discussed in the past, just 4 or 5 weeks ago, excuse me, but my relationship with hip hop and how I found that, like in the past, there often isn't enough going on with the music itself to interest me. And when this started, when the first song proper started, I was like, this could be the answer, because there's lots going on it, but without it taking away from the story that David Diggs is trying to tell. It doesn't. And achieving that balance of, I mean, there's things that are building very, very slowly, almost in a post-rock fashion, but in a very ominous post-rock sort of fashion.
It's got that piano part in it which just goes relentless.
Yeah,
like a horror film, like a stalker. It stalks you throughout the entire song, throughout the whole track. It just never ever stops. And the bass line, that kind of synthesized bass line, the drums that come in, the kind of those wahs and flushes of noise, they go all over the place. And Diggs as well. I mean, one of the things that I think is one of the most impressive things about this record is the juxtaposition between the vocals and the music, which this is like you say, this is not a thinly produced basic standard hip hop record.
No, definitely.
There's far, far, far more going on. I said something to you yesterday, which is that I think you could probably take the vocals out and you'd still have a very, very good record. You know, you'd have a record which I think we've reviewed some instrumental albums that are less interesting than the music on this record. And that's before you add in this rapper and his features that come with it as well. But particularly, that track, they kind of tag team intensity.
Yeah.
Which is really, really fucking difficult to do. Like when he kind of slows down and he lets up, they build. And when he kind of goes really fast and very intense, they kind of settle back a bit.
They're really listening to each other, and that's really, really obvious. At its best, I agree that this record could be instrumental and still very, very good. But I probably think it's only at its best for about half the album. But I'll get into that because I still want to keep saying nice things about it. The next song, He Dead, like continues this brilliant, subtle menace. And then it starts with that low, ominous, elongated bass notes, and something comes in. I don't know what it is. It feels like maybe like a glockenspiel, but that's been massively, massively produced and like put down several octaves and slowed down. It's a very kind of Trent Reznor approach.
Yeah, Nine Inch Nails is a great shout. I think there's plenty of Nine Inch Nails on this record.
Loads.
As well. Yeah, particularly when you like Bad Witch era. I was going to say, they're kind of what they were doing last year.
Actually, Bad Witch is a great shout. I was actually going to say more the instrumental passages of The Fragile when he's at his deepest and darkest and lowest. But Bad Witch is a great shout. But there is a lot of that, and there's a lot of like sonic experimentation and a lot of like let's make a sound and then fuck with it, you know, in a digital sort of way. And they're really, really good at that. And that song continues that. You have a number of interludes on this album, which actually reminded me of Brand New's Science Fiction and those psychoanalysis tapes that Jesse bought on eBay for however much money and just sort of dispersed throughout the record, but which just give it that eerie kind of ominous, gloomy sense of, I don't know, some dystopian nasty thing.
Well, like Haunting. There's a track called Haunting.
Haunting. There we go.
And I was listening to that to be honest, I put this on when I was coming back from Killswitch Engage, and the first
juxtaposition.
And I was walking through the dark streets of South London, and I had it on, and it is chillingly, sort of paranoia-inducingly, just unnerving. Like, and when it got to Haunting, and she was talking about Satan is trying to get me. I was like, fuck me, this is really. I had to turn it off.
Last time Satan got me, I had a great night. But it is round this point that it begins to lose my attention slightly, if I'm totally honest. And actually, funnily enough, it's around this point that it starts getting really industrial and noisy, which is often shit that I like. But I think it's actually kind of between like track 5 to like track 11 or something like that.
Really?
It has a lot of ideas which, if not are repeated, are at the very least very, very similar. I find there's a lot of good stuff on those tracks. The lyrics for Club Down are absolutely amazing.
Oh, I love that song.
They're incredible. I don't like the song. I like the lyrics. I think the lyrics are incredible.
Yeah.
I think they're really, really incredible.
I fucking love that song.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I think it is one of the best. I mean, the thing about this album is as good as the music is, and I think the music is really, really great throughout. Without Diggs, I mean, he is the star of this record. He is absolutely the star of this record. And on Club Down, it's probably the only time on the record, I think, where he switches into kind of legit anger. Because the thing about this record is that I actually find this record chilling in a similar not in a similar way that Linguita Ignota made me. I mean, that is obviously an intensity which far surpasses anything, and it's a different, it's so emotionally wrought. This is kind of the opposite, but gives me a similar sort of feeling because it is so detached. The shit they're talking about, the way like on the song The Show, when he's talking about which is basically a torture porn story set to this kind of electronic throb. He is so detached from what he's saying that it's fucking terrifying. Like it's that person who is staring you in the face as they carve a knife across their chest and doesn't blink. Like he is, and I've read a few reviews of this record, and the a couple of the criticisms of it are that he sounds too robotic, he sounds too detached, he sounds like he's not giving it enough of emotion in his voice. I think he definitely does do that in Club Down, which is a furiously seething, absolutely hate-filled kind of takedown of just modern society, isn't it? Just absolute this fucking you're disgusting people. It seems like he's walking through the
nightclub as an analogy for that.
Yeah, and walking through the streets like the pigs with bottles in their faces, and and you can tell that that's something which he has this massive amount of disdain for. But the rest of the record is kind of oddly detached, almost like a serial killer would be. Like, do you know what I mean? There's a level of, when you're talking about like cutting people's shoulders off, and there's a line in Blood of the Fang where he says, Brother Malcolm told you by any means, so what you're saying, we're on the same team. And the sort of it's this kind of really emotionless indication of, because I mean that whole song is about kind of race riots and the sort of civil rights movement, the Black civil rights movement. I think talking about it over a 50-year period. And in that line, he basically just goes, "I would happily just kill anyone," and it's and the way he says it is fucking. Like it's so detached that you kind of believe it because it's so kind of psychotically coldly delivered. And when shit like that happens on this record, I think it's scary and amazing at the same time, and it stirs the same sort of feelings in me as something like definitely the Daughters record, definitely not to the same extent where I can't listen to it because I must have listened to this album 30 times in the last few days. But in the same way as the Linguita Ignota album did, in the same way as the Drift does, in the same way as some of the most painfully violent, narcissistic records that have ever been made, this does the same thing to me as those records do, but it's done in a completely different way. This isn't somebody screaming and wailing and getting really, really angry. This is someone who is just like matter-of-factly dissecting. It's the difference between, I guess, Charles Manson and what's his name, Ted Bundy. That's how I feel about it.
I think I listen to this record and it unnerves me, but I think the comparison to Lingua Ignota is kind of crass, really, because with Diggs is usually talking about characters, other people. Mm-hmm. He's not talking about stuff that's happening to him.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah,
whereas Lingua Ignota is, talking about sleeping with her lover who rapes her every night, and it's happening to her. And there's nothing on this record which I think is anywhere near as like "I am the cunt killer," which is like lines which are used on.
No, but I think that you mean I think Linguita Ignota is its own thing. I think to go that far, and I've said I don't think it goes that far. Yeah. But all I'm saying is when there are a group of records that tap into that thing that just makes you feel incredibly uncomfortable. Linguita Ignota makes me feel so uncomfortable I don't want to listen to it. Whereas this is like I like listening to the Daughters album. I've got to be in the mood for it, but I like listening to it. And this, I like listening to it. I guess it makes you kind of feel like it's easier to put yourself in his shoes because you know it's a character, you know it's kind of all metaphorical, but it's so, I don't know. I mean, lyrically, it is so cutting and shocking sometimes.
I think it's beautifully like presented. I mean, I've not really looked at other reviews of this. I wonder if people will look at it as something that puts me off with so much hip hop is how it's. But we've discussed this before, but the sort of macho posturing kind of aspect of it, and
there's a little bit.
There's
of that
a teeny weeny bit of it on this, but for the majority of it, it's not that. It's it is well. He's primarily an actor, isn't he?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so he's portraying these characters just in an incredibly good way, but in a way that doesn't put me off 97% of the time. There's occasional phrases where I'm like, I'd rather you didn't put it like that or whatever, but and I do think like a story like Story 7 is such a fascinating fictional narrative. I mean, I don't really want to spoil it, but it the manner in which it sort of turns violence against women on its head, I suppose. I'm trying to not say too much without
and also the fact that the hook, because the thing about this is not only is he like this amazingly technical rapper who has a really unique style.
Yeah, his timbre is brilliant.
And his flow's incredible, but he also, I mean, on that song, and he doesn't do it very much in this album, and I think it's good to kind of use this trick sparingly, but he that has got this vocal hook on it, but it's not the sort of vocal hook you could sing to someone because it's
no.
Do you know what I mean? But it suddenly comes out of nowhere when this really quite nasty, violent world is being sort of painted for you. Yeah. Suddenly this really sugary vocal hook comes in, but saying the most appalling, horrible stuff, and that's an amazing juxtaposition of styles. I think he's fucking brilliant, this guy.
Yeah.
He's fucking amazing.
He is, yeah. I also wanted to say, I mean, I think what I was sort of trying to get at earlier in terms of, in my opinion, in terms of the album, it starts brilliantly. For me, it wanes in the middle, doesn't become bad in the middle, but I just lose interest in the middle. Towards the end of track 11, annoyingly, I've not put it down, but it has this Amen outro.
All in your head.
There we go. Which is performed by Counterfeit Madison.
Yep. Who I don't know.
Who I don't know either, but it's just like, it's quite a dark, menacing track. It's another kind of noisescapey track, really. But then it's sort of out of that noisescape comes this almost angelic choir thing. It's just absolutely amazing. And it totally just switched me back on to the record again. And then I'm back in it again. I just feel like there's a good... For me personally, there's a good 15 or 20 minutes in the middle where I am just a bit like, you're just sort of throwing noises at me now. And I'm kind of bored by this. It is way too long as well, isn't it? Let's face it.
No.
Well, are we including piano burning?
Well, okay. I mean, piano burning is 18 minutes of the sound of a piano burning.
Yeah. Do you listen to that every time you listen to the record? Yeah, good. Okay. Waste of time for that last track.
It's a bloody noise. Do you know what I mean? The bands who make noisy records tend to make odd, long, noisy.
I would criticise them for the exact same thing. I mean,
I would too. I would too. I mean, I don't want to listen to it, but then I don't actually think. I think when you put it at the end, it's kind of a joke for them. Like, you wouldn't turn around and go, "Oh, Rated R. I'm going to knock a mark off of Rated R by Queens of the Stone Age because I don't want to listen to whatever that fucking shit is at the end." Do you know what I mean? I don't want to listen to that. I'm right though, aren't I? I am right though, aren't I, boys?
The difference.
You don't listen to Rated R by Queens of Stone Age and then get to the end and go, I will listen to this whole bloody trumpet bit that gives you a headache, and then go, yeah, I'm going to count that as part of the record proper.
It's a perfectly good point. There is only one thing I would say. That trumpet bit is 4 minutes. This is 18 minutes.
That's not 4 minutes. It goes on for like fucking...
No, it's about 4 minutes. Yeah.
Fuck me. It feels longer than that.
It does feel longer.
I can listen to the sound of a piano burning for a lot longer than I can listen to that, to be honest.
So that's the difference. But yes, I understand what you're saying.
But there are loads of bands that have done that before, and I
Yeah,
always
yeah,
think
yeah.
that, you know,
Yeah, and I
you
always
can't
have a go
go-
at them for doing it. So
I'm
there you
not
go.
going to point off because that song.
I didn't say anything. We
I'm
don't
just-
do points.
No, I
I'm
know.
not knocking any
I know.
points off.
But if
It's
you were
fine.
to do that,
I'm just pointing it out. Let's pretend it's not even on the record. I'll even give you the benefit of the doubt.
I do, to be honest.
So in that case, with Piano Burning, this is 68 minutes and 27 seconds. Without it, it's 50 minutes and 27 seconds. I got all of the bits that I liked and I put them into Audacity, and I like 33 minutes of this album.
Right. How long is it without Piano Burning?
50 minutes 27. So it's over half.
All right. I would eat my own shit to listen to 55 minutes of it all the way through. I think it's fucking brilliant. I think I wouldn't touch a single second
Yeah.
of this record. Okay, so cards on the table time, Remfry.
Oh, you're not gonna say things which.
No, hold on. We've been talking, obviously, we're getting to the point now where we start thinking about what is our album of the year going to be
you
and what
are.
are our best. Well, no, it's worth talking
Don't
about.
spunk it.
And I've made a point of going, there are about 6 or 7 records that have all been number one at some point. And that's true. There have been 6 or 7 records throughout the year that have been, you know, my number one. But some of them have been like Spielberg's. Earlier in the year, in the start of February, I was like, I fucking love that Spielberg's record. It's great. You know, I never thought it would stay there. And it hasn't. The reality is, I've been kind of juggling 2 records I'll say 5 on the podcast, but really, it's one or the other of these 2, and nothing else is coming. It's now 3. So, I mean, I kind
What,
of
because of the Refused record?
No, this record will be 1, 2, or 3 come the end of the year.
Okay.
I think it's absolutely amazing, and it is everything. I'm just delighted that stuff like this exists. I just couldn't be. It's to me, it is the perfect record for 2019. It's you know, it's just so representative of now, and it's so brilliant as well. Like I've been trying to get into more hip hop stuff, and you're right. You know, this definitely. This is a hip hop record of sorts. Yeah. You know, it's not to just say it's a hip hop album. I guess would be like calling, I don't know, fucking
this is
Young Team by Mogwai a rock album.
Yeah. Or,
Do you know what I mean?
or Neurosis a metal album.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot more to it than that. But when I listen to it and it stirs the same thoughts in me as the Daughters record or Neurosis or, you know, Scott Walker or any of those really, really, but the difference with this is, like I say, is you can kind of walk down the street and almost feel like you are in that, and it's not gross, like it doesn't gross you out. And you know, I was talking to my girlfriend about this record, and she's like, "Why the hell would you want to listen to this? Why would you want to kind of start to feel like, you know, you're in that world?" And I don't know, it's just something that's really kind of primally. Not even it's a reptilian response to it. Like this record is so fucking cold-blooded that it's just, I don't know. I think it's just something you go. Everyone's got a little bit of serial killer in them somewhere, haven't they?
But it's a bit of empathy as well, isn't it? I mean, the whole, like, a lot of art is kind of some kind of empathy machine. Just keep dropping on my nose. It's fine. Right. But I think the Daughters comparisons are much more accurate in terms of the sense of unease that it gives you. I probably find Daughters more uneasy personally, but that's probably just my affliction to this.
I think Daughters. I think definitely Daughters are more. That feels like a real emotion to me. Do you know what I mean? That feels like a genuine emotion, rather than sort of allegorical ideas and stories.
Whereas this is acted, but then some people would use that as a a criticism. And
Tom Waits does it, Nick Cave does it,
well, I was about to
Dylan
say,
does it.
I'm glad that a lot of this is acted, because if it wasn't, I'd be like, we need to call the police on this fella. So I don't think that is actually a very valid criticism. And actually, in a way, it makes me admire it more, because I'm like, you're a fucking good actor, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because it is very convincing.
Yeah. And it really, like, it's really sucked me in, this record.
I will
changes the way I walk when I listen to it down the street.
I can see that. Yeah. You know what? I will say I have not listened to it on headphones, and I would like to do that at some point. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I have to say again, the difference between listening to it on a really good pair of headphones and just on a speaker, or a really good speaker. I mean, I've listened to it on an all right speaker, and I've listened to it on a really good pair of headphones, and on the headphones, it gives you loads more. Like, you know, again, to shout out the two producers, they're not like. I think it would be easy to turn around and be like, we've got this guy, he's clearly amazing, let's just give him a beat and let him work over it, which you know, is what a lot of hip hop does.
Yeah. Yep.
We give yourself, you know, a kind of catchy beat, and then we'll just repeat it, and then away you go. You be the narrative, you be the, you know, you be everything. You know, you be the kind of color and the sort of the hook, and you do everything. Whereas, like I say, there aren't many hip hop, but there are a few instrumental hip hop albums. Probably like Introducing by DJ Shallow would be the kind of main one. But you know, if you took him off of this record and listened to it instrumentally, I don't think you'd think that it's a hip hop record. I don't think immediately you go, hip hop record.
No,
you know
I
mean?
think you're probably right, which is probably why it draws me in like others don't. Yeah, but then I don't think all of the tracks instrumentally would be that engaging either. In my
maybe not, but he
opinion.
really picks up the slack for the ones that don't. I agree. Like, I think that there are a couple that aren't quite as like some of the instrumentation, like, you know, and the stuff that we've mentioned, like the nothing is sacred.
Yeah, nothing is sacred.
Nothing is safe. Sorry.
Nothing is safe. Sorry,
Yeah.
yes.
But that bit, when he goes, nothing is safe. Nothing is safe. Nothing is sacred. It's like, oh God, it's so great.
I mean, that does feel like when I heard that, I thought I'd heard it before. It was kind of like one
Halloween,
of those,
isn't it? It's so Halloween. It's a riff of John Carpenter's Halloween.
Yeah.
Even the video, if you watch the video, it's really good. Actually, the video, I went and watched the video for Blood of the Fang, and that is a great video.
Okay.
It's really horrible again. Like, it's very, very not suitable for work, but it's fucking just very disturbing. And it made me go, yes, like, this is this level of fucking detachment that someone like Carcass would have. Carcass talk about medical, you know, the slicing of the flesh in that kind of medical terminology that they used to use, like really kind of clever medical, like almost something out of a medical handbook. That's kind of what clipping do at points as well.
Yes.
It's really quite it should be kind
very
of
visceral.
stomach show. Yeah, very, very visceral. I love it.
I will say this much: I think it's a fantastic record in which predominantly sits itself in a genre that I don't care for. But I'm a professional, and therefore, I think this is a very very good record, especially when it's really good.
Yeah.
And I would say, taking Piano Burning off, I'd say the beginning and the end. This is an astonishing record. And if I just took that 33 minutes of music and listened to that, I'd be like, this is incredible.
Thank you, Mr. Duck, on the download forum.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me one of my favourite things I've heard in forever.
I'll say this much: if we are calling this a hip hop record, thank you for giving me the best hip hop record I've ever heard in my life.
Mate, it's
far.
up there. Like, it's really good.
Not that I'm like, to be very clear, not that I've heard like 20 hip hop records in my life, but you know, this is easily number one. It's easily the.
I mean,
most
I went
interesting.
down a bit of a rabbit hole to try and listen to more kind of experimental hip hop artists that I thought might be in the same vein as these, and none of them have grabbed me in the same way as this has.
Yeah, there we go.
There's a few ones that I was like, I might come back to that guy and have a proper listen to him later on, but nothing like this. This is a fucking absolute masterpiece. I love it. So anyway, there you go. That is Clipping. There Existed an Addiction to Blood. It is one of the fucking best records you will hear this year. You have to listen to it.
It's one of the best titles of the year as well.
It's great, yeah. You all right in there, chaps?
Yeah, fine.
Going to listen to that record?
I'm definitely going to listen to it now.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I can't wait. I know I want to listen to the piano burning thing. That intrigues me.
What, a piano burning for 18 minutes?
Yeah.
It's
I I like that sort of stuff.
Okay, you'll love it. Yeah.
Put it on 18 minutes before you get out of here. Make the last 18 minutes really drag. That's
Do
what
we
you
have
do.
anything exciting that's been happening in the box since we've been?
No, we're slowly losing our mind.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Drawing on the walls and yeah.
Someone keeps moving the pole that the light's on.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is.
Someone keeps moving the pole that the light's on. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me.
Wouldn't be anything to do with us, would it?
It's nice listening to your two's voices, but in real life, because I'm used to listening to them in my headphones in the car.
Well, that's
Ah.
nice, Tom. You're welcome.
So,
Thanks, Tom.
Carry on.
Right, we will. Our next album comes from a band called We Lost the Sea. The album's called Parting Ways. Fourth album, again, from the...
Whoa. It's called Triumph and Disaster, mate.
Is it?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, mate. I've obviously written down... Oh, Parting Ways is one of the songs
It is
on
one
the
of
record.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, what's it called again?
Triumph and Disaster.
Triumph and Disaster. Didn't know that. The fourth album from the Australian instrumental post-rock Sextet, the follow-up to 2015's Departure Songs, an album which I have never heard before.
That's
In fact, I haven't heard We Lost the Sea at all. As I said, instrumental post-rock. It will surprise no one to learn that Remfry, you brought this record in.
Hey, yeah.
Go on then, give us a spiel. What are these lot?
Well, they're Australian post-rock. This is a concept album, I suppose, and we have discussed in the past when bands do concept albums and they're instrumental. We've been very cynical about that sometimes. Sometimes it works, kind of.
You
but
have.
Okay, fine.
No, I have as well. I find it quite hard to follow it, yeah.
Let me just give you an idea of what the album's actually meant to be about. So Triumph and Disaster is a post-apocalyptic view on the collapse of the world, told like a children's story and illustrated through the eyes of a mother and her son as they spend one last day on Earth. The music is the narrative for the destruction and tragedy. A sad love letter is told through a lens of intricate guitars and striking colour. The album deliberates themes and events such as the climate crisis, overconsumption, isolation, and the loss of love and trust. It is a lament for the planet, all the people on it, and the beauty that will be left behind.
Right. Well, I didn't get that, I have to say, but...
Now, I didn't... when I first listened to it, I didn't know exactly what it was, but I did get the sense of epic scale and something epic was going down, right? When I heard it was effectively about the planet's destruction, it all seemed to make total sense to me. And the idea of it being the world's destruction through the eyes of a child as well, or through the eyes of a mother whose child is dying.
It's heavy duty, that, isn't it?
It's heavy as fuck. And now that I have those concepts and ideas in my head, I mean, I would say that, like, I'm often very skeptical about that sort of thing, but I implore anyone, in fact, I implore everyone to check this album out because it's fucking brilliant as far as I'm concerned. But I would also recommend that people go and there's a website called behance.net. We'll try and get a link for it, and I'll try to remember to put it up in show description or tweet it out at some point, where you see all the very detailed concept artwork and all the things that they have done around the record. And it's one of those classic scenarios that, like, the more you look into it, the more it fills in the blanks of what the music is. And I've now got to this point where I've gone down a hell of a rabbit hole with this album and filled in so many different parts of it and actually discovered kind of more and more and more what it's actually about. So, for example, this is a 65-minute post-rock / post-metal record. There's definitely points where it gets very, very heavy. The opening sort of tremolo picking sounds like it could be from a black metal album, I would say.
Yes, there's definitely some like heavy bits on this.
Yeah. There's some really heavy bits, and it can get very, very heavy if it wants to, and it goes into this phenomenal kind of cascading, lurching riff, which then goes half time, and like there's all sorts of things going on with it. But then there's also a song where there's just beautiful picked guitar and a lap steel guitar, which sort of takes elements from country and western. And I think that is Parting Ways, actually. It may well be.
Yeah, possibly.
And what We Lost the Sea do so well is they take elements from different genres, but make them their own and never kind of explicitly go, this is a black metal bit, this is a country and western bit, this is a, I don't know, orchestral bit. And it's really difficult to describe this album without talking about Journey, annoyingly, which I hate to do.
Journey? What, Don't Stop Believing?
No, the journey that it takes you on,
okay,
Steve.
yeah.
Because I think this album flows extraordinarily well. Like, for starters, the first song, Towers, is 15 minutes long. I didn't even realise it was 15 minutes until my 5th or 6th listen to the album, because it flows in such a incredible way. It's like, it flows like water going down a stream, you know, like it twists and it turns, it goes in different directions, you know. Sometimes it's cascading down like these waterfalls, and sometimes it's quite gentle and trickling, but it never feels like it makes an odd jump. It never feels like from the beginning of the song to the end of the song, you've gone to all sorts of places, but you always feel like you've gone there on a very natural linear path, if that makes sense. It never, like, you know, sometimes like Between the Buried and Me, for example, they try and put so many stuff in their things in their songs, and then there's just sort of awkward odd joins in songs. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about it a little bit with Refused a bit later. This always flows, and it always feels so effortless. And as a result, I think 65 minutes for me goes incredibly quickly, very, very quickly, in the manner that like the Tool record flows very, very, very smoothly, or Cult of Luna album flows very smoothly. Yes, it's a long record, but it doesn't feel long because of the composition, and the songcraft is so solid and so strong that you never feel like you're listening to something epic, but you don't feel like you're listening to something that's long necessarily.
Do you think you need that context to enjoy this record?
No, I think it enhances it.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's great when like having that kind of context enhances a record. But I don't think it's absolutely imperative, because the first 2 or 3 times I listened to the album, I didn't know what it was about at all. And my first listen to the album, went, this is the best instrumental album of the year. I think the only thing that vaguely touches it is Jambalaya. But I do think
I like that Jambalaya record.
I do think this is better. I mean, I would, if someone said to me, "Oh, I prefer Jambalaya," I wouldn't be like, "You're wrong." But I do prefer this.
I prefer Jambalaya.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you're wrong. but you know, I think this is more. Jambalaya's brilliant because you're listening to something.
You're going, what is this?
Yeah, you're going, what the fuck is this?
I love that though.
No, I know, and that is awesome. I brought Jambalaya in, and I love it, you know. But I think We Lost the Sea do something a bit more traditional to our Western ears, but they just do it so incredibly well that I'm like, well, I've got to give them the fake gong in my head, which is best instrumental album of the year.
Oh.
This is also released by Holy Raw as well. Yeah, in the UK, this is being released by Holy Raw, and I would even go as far as to say that this is less of an accolade, but bar reissues and EPs, I think this is Holy Raw's best release of the year.
Wow, they will be delighted with that accolade.
Bar EP being the A.A. Williams EP, and bar reissues being the Holy Fawn album. But that is the level that I'm talking about with this album. I think it's fucking brilliant. I love it. You just think it's an instrumental album?
I think it would make a good 20-minute EP.
Oh, wow.
I think it would make a great 20-minute EP. I think the last 2 songs are amazing. Like, really, really good. I loved the last 2 songs. I thought they were great.
Do you mean the vocal as well?
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that with you.
Okay. I didn't get a lot from this. I kind of found myself nodding off during my first listen, about halfway through. And then I sort of made myself listen to it properly. And I just thought, I don't really... Like I said, Parting Ways is 12 minutes long. And I don't really remember anything happening during it. I just was like, this just seems to be one riff, and it builds up a little bit. And actually... And then it just sort of fizzles out.
I mean, it's definitely more than one riff.
Well, maybe, but it just sort of felt like it just sort of continued on this path. I mean, when you talk about it fizzling down and trickling around like water, that's the exact opposite of how I felt. I felt that they just sort of, they sat in a pocket for so long. And I think that's, you know, a lot of instrumental music does do that, but I always kind of, I don't mind the build, but subtlety's all good and everything, but I wanted more of a payoff from this. And I never felt like, for the first half of the record, I was getting frustrated that, you know, I wasn't getting enough payoff for so much of it. And I was like,
I think the first song on the album's probably the most dynamic on the entire record, though.
well, no, I think what's the second to last one, which is 14 minutes long, The Last Sun, that has that really cool kind of menacing bit, and then it just kind of stops dead and does something else completely for a few minutes. And I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of what I want. It kind of built up to something very quickly in post-rock terms. I guess 2 minutes 50 seconds is pretty quick.
It's nothing.
Yeah, and then it did something completely different for 4 minutes, and it felt like it really sort of soared, found its level of, did everything that it needed to do, and then changed.
Funny enough, what I like about it is the total opposite.
Yeah,
The fact that it seems so seamless. Like you are going through loads of, but it never feels like, oh, this is the first part, this is the core, or even this is part A, this is part B, part C, this is part D. It just feels like one continuous piece of music. And I think the skill to do that is beyond 99.9% of bands.
I don't know. I think that's all well and good, and you know, often that can be something good. But often for me, and certainly in this case, I felt like because it flowed and you don't really see, you know, like there's nowhere to, then there weren't enough points in it. Maybe this is just my attention span, but there weren't enough points for me to bookmark and go, okay, so we were there and now we're here. Because it did just suddenly, like I say, subtlety's all well and good, but if it just feels like it's all blending into one long sort of never-ending jam session with a riff that and a pace that stays fairly similarly for a long time, then, you know, because there's one point where I was like, I listened to it and I think it was in Parting Ways. I was like, right, I'm going to sit here and watch the clock and see how long they do this riff for, and it was like 6 minutes. And I was like, I can't hear this changing at all. It just seems to go on and on and on and on and on, endlessly, the same fucking riff, over and over and over again. And I was like, I don't
think there's any part of this record that stays the same for 6 minutes.
Well, that did. I watched the clock and I was like, there's that riff. I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to watch the timer tick through on the thing. And I was like, it doesn't really seem to be changing. It changes, like... It maybe changes tonally a little bit throughout it, but the bare kind of bones of what it's doing, to me, it didn't. I was like, you could have done that in half the time. And I think, you know, like there's being expansive, and then there's just being a little bit kind of flaccid with what you're doing. And I guess I found a lot of this a bit just like, come on, you don't need 12 minutes.
Really? Okay. I completely disagree. I mean, for me, it's the record which, like the Cult of Lunas and the Tools this year, just goes by in what feels like about 20 minutes.
No, this felt like a real like endurance test for me.
Really? Okay.
But then, like I say, ironically, as I was a little bit like you getting halfway through the clipping, when that bit dropped out at the end of that second to last song, I went, oh, and I was like, oh, and it totally grabbed my attention again. And for the last two songs, I was like, this is good. This is really good. And I did think if they'd released, like I say, if that was a 20-minute long EP, I'd be like, this is really, really good.
I mean, some of their songs on the previous album are 20 minutes long.
Well, so maybe.
Unlikely.
I mean, that's fine. You know, or even if they released it as one track then, just a one-track single that was 20 minutes long, I would listen to that. I thought it was really good.
Let's talk about Mother's Song, because I think that's quite important. Mother's Song is the last song on the record, and when I first heard it, it's the only song that has vocals on it. And it's this incredible... She's an absolutely amazing vocalist called Louise Nutting, who is clearly a phenomenal singer, but does things which I actually really don't like, and I find very jarring and strange in a sort of X Factor sort of way. And I mean the kind of like
Right.
Like basically like using glottal a lot and just singing way too many notes. Just too many notes.
Too
basically.
many notes.
Too many notes, mate. Stop singing all those notes. When it
You got a bloody tree worth of notes about this album. in front of you.
when it first came in, it really jarred with me, and I was like, I don't need Mariah Carey to finish off this amazing, beautiful instrumental album that I've just had. And I have to say that actually, on further listening,
Mariah Carey, I'd have taken Alexandra Burke at that point. Man.
I do think upon further, the more that I listen to that song, I think the manner in which it builds with the rest of the instrumentation, there's loads of horns in it, lots of horns this year in music.
Yeah, I like
it's
the
very
horns.
good though. The horns are lovely. I actually think it's the perfect full stop on this album, and there aren't many lyrics in it, but it's basically we rose with the sun and fell into disgrace. We bled the earth dry while guilt soaked through our veins, and knowing that the album's about the destruction of the planet because of us farting about with our technology and all that shit gives it a bit more of a and this song is meant to be the moment her son's died, and knowing all
I
that,
think I should listen to it with that new information to see if I enjoy it more.
what I would be tempted to ask you to do, and obviously you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I'd quite like to send you the extended artwork and the additional concepts and all that kind of thing, because there are pages and pages and pages of it, and it may sound like, oh, it's a hell of a slog to get through, but it's presented like a children's book. It's presented like a children's kids book, so actually it doesn't take that long to get through, and it's mainly illustrated, and the illustrations are beautiful, like really beautiful, and accompanying the music, it's just and this is the booklet which comes with the vinyl or the CD if you want to buy it. I mean, talk about buy a reason to buy physical product. This is, don't get this digitally. If you are interested in it, buy the vinyl or the CD or whatever. And it really is.
It's got a really nice front cover.
Yeah, well, the front cover.
No, it is. The artwork's really good. The artwork's
I just
really
felt
good.
like such a damning with faint praise.
No,
But
the
yes.
artwork's really good.
No. And the artwork is all done by, I believe it's one of the guitarists of the band as well. And all of the artwork is that style. And you can kind of imagine that artwork as a children's illustrated book. Yeah. It reminds me of Where the Wild Things Are. Raymond Briggs.
It's got a little bit of that, yeah.
Raymond Briggs, 1986. It was turned into an animation. It's absolutely beautiful. Still
And a
difficult to
film,
watch.
And a film with James Gandolfini.
Oh yeah, James Gandolfini was in it. Oh god, yeah. No, I thought this record. I don't think it's been the best year in the world for instrumental records, but this is right out. This and Jambalaya and I can't even think of any
Mate,
other.
Tea for the Sea is the one that I'm like.
Oh yeah, Tea for the Sea.
thing is, I guess this is the difference between you and I, isn't it? Because I like just fucking mad shit going off all over the place all the time.
But I also think all three of those records are brilliant. But those three records also kind of puts a mockery to this whole, and I know you haven't done it as much anymore, but kind of puts a whole mockery to the whole Remfry core thing, because how different are those three records?
Oh yeah, they are
From
really
one another?
different,
Like completely and utterly different. But they are all essentially instrumental records. There's some Korean.
No, you're
stuff
right.
and
Of course, you're right about instrumental music. I think you are. I mean, I guess possibly that's why. I mean, I got the feeling that you really like this record, and when I heard it, I was a bit like, oh, because some of the other ones that you brought in have been just really like, whoa, like you listen to Three Track Tigers and you do go, fucking hell, wow.
Yeah.
And it is everything that you don't expect instrumental music to be, whereas this to me is everything that I do expect instrumental music to be. And that's not an insult per se, it's just that this to me feels, this is the Die Art is Murder of instrumental music.
It's got a lot more songcraft than Die Art is fucking Murder.
Yeah, well, so Deathcore hasn't got as much songcraft as anything, I think, so that's why. But yeah, I just thought like this is kind of what I expect from an instrumental band, post-rock band.
I guess it's what people disparagingly would call crescendo core, although even that I think is quite unfair, because the manner in which this crescendos is very expertly done. But yes.
Crescendos.
Hmm?
There's not many crescendos in it either, really.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
I don't think there is.
Listening to this album,
I
there's
just don't
quite
think
a
there
lot.
is.
It's very dynamic, this album.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Sorry.
I don't know where to go with that. Okay.
I just don't really think it, like, we've
laughter
just
from
been
the
talking
box.
about the Clippy record and just say this is dynamic in comparison to
This is way more dynamic than clipping. Yeah.
no, not in a million years.
If you got
I'm not having
the two waves, the wavy sonic
yeah,
wavy
you'd be
things.
a boring person and you wouldn't do that. So
yeah,
let's
and
not
you would
even-
also, in fact, I'm going to do it when I get home tonight,
Right.
and you
It will
would
prove
prove
nothing. It
You
will
would
prove
prove
that's
that
not dynamic.
We Lost the Sea is more dynamic.
That's got nothing to do. A fucking sound wave isn't going to prove shit about dynamics. It's the feeling.
It'll
and
give you
the
an
emotion.
idea.
No bollocks.
It'll give you a vague
that's a
idea.
graph. Music's not about fucking graphs and nerd. Fucking Mr. Carol Vorderman here, fucking trying to tell me what. We've scientifically proven what's good about music. Bollocks.
It's scientifically more dynamic than clipping, but that's fine.
it's
You know, clipping's good as well.
Okay, yeah, mate. This isn't rubbish, but I need to stretch your imagination. I just like.
Certainly
I don't
isn't.
think. I think maybe I need the story to go with it, and we'll see if it's better. But anyway, that is Triumph and Disaster by We Lost the Sea. Boys, are you into that? Haggard, they've fallen asleep. That sound like a bit of you, lads? You are?
Not listen to it.
Yeah, but you going to listen to it on Remfry's recommendation?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like you are.
We come all the fucking way down here, and all you...
We're drawing you both from memory.
Okay, how's
I
the...
don't want to see them.
I'm much thinner than you remember. However, you're drawing me.
Carry on.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you.
I'm really pleased
all right, let's talk about
that.
Alcest. This would be good. Spiritual Instinct by
Don't know them,
Alcest.
skip along.
Yeah, good. It's the 7th album from the French trio. That has
I'm sorry I suggested this as an idea.
Yeah, it's an awful idea. Obviously, Alcest, one of the popularisers of the black gaze movement. This is a follow-up to 2016.
Popularisers, I like that.
They are, aren't they?
I don't know if it's a word, but I like it.
I know, I've just made it. Right, yeah, you can talk. You're making up words all the fucking time. 2016's Code Armor was the
said I liked
last record. And I actually kind of expected, due to the sort of stuff that the various members of Alcest who were being interviewed in the build-up to this record and the stuff that I read about it, I expected quite the departure. Did you?
Yes.
I did as well.
Actually, no. Let me cycle back. I got given this album very early because I reviewed it for Metal Hammer, and you get stuff super early with print. So I heard it a good while ago. But then when I was listening to what Nage was saying in interviews about how, like stripping his soul bare and just how it was a very cathartic and difficult and I guess visceral album to make, I was kind of like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get like when New Bermuda came out by Death Heaven.
Yeah.
Which was definitely a reaction to going, right, well, we are heavy.
Yeah.
That's what I sort of thought we might get with this.
Yeah. I think it's I think it is more raw in the sense that it feels a bit more live. And you know, I don't know how Alcest record, but it feels a little bit more let's just plug in and go than say Kadama or Shelter. That isn't a criticism against Kadama or Shelter, both of which I think are fucking amazing records, by the way. Kadama's my number one, but
I got to fess up a little bit here. I'm not a massive Alcest fan.
are you not?
I'm not even that I'm
I
not a
am
massive.
surprised by that.
Well, it's not even that I'm not a fan. I've just not really dug that deep into their back catalogue.
So what do you know and what do you not
Kadama.
know? Just Kadama.
That's the only one.
Oh, mate, okay. Well, Shelter is like the really controversial record for them because there was no screams on it at all,
Yeah,
as
I'm
far as I
aware that
recall.
that's the sort of.
It's very super sort of dream poppy, but you know, actually, I mean, a fantastic record. Fuck the haters. Brilliant. You all right with that?
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of hip hop this week, so you know, it's
A
rubbed
lot
off on
of-
me.
For you.
For me.
You use the Boom Shake the Room's a lot of hip hop for you.
What a song. But
Oh, you like that, do you? You like Boom Shake the Room?
Oh, Boom Shake the Room's brilliant.
Oh, yeah. So Remfry just likes really credible hip hop artists,
Yeah, quite.
like Will Smith and the Fever 333.
I mean, getting jiggy with it, yeah. But yes, Alcest we were talking about, yeah. No, the Kodama, the last record was based on Princess Mononoke, the Studio Ghibli. You don't know.
No. Oh, was it? Yeah, I know what that is.
The Studio Ghibli thing. Yeah. I don't think this is a massive departure. No, I think
it was
this
going to be more of a departure than that.
I think
have
to be honest, I think this is kind of more of the same, slightly different, still very good.
It's quite a cool meld of all the things. So when I say I know Kodama, that's probably the only one I've only listened to. I've heard bits and bobs of Alcest from over the years or whatever.
Did you see them support Opeth not too long ago?
No, I didn't. No,
Oh.
no, I didn't see them. I've never seen them before. As I said, I've
Very
just
good live.
not. Yeah, I've just not really ever kind of gone for them for some reason. I don't know why.
Deary me. They're coming to the old London town in December.
I know they are. I'd like to see them.
Oh, you should
Because
do
I like
that.
this, basically.
it's
Let's
really
get
good.
to that. Is that this is really good. I really like this. And
Yeah.
it feels like a cool meld of the things from the past of theirs that I heard and the good shit from the last record. So, you know, I kind of like that they haven't gone quite too far down. I didn't really like the idea of an Alcest record where it was going to be like trying to be black metal, because that doesn't really feel like, you know, trying to be like full on heavy, like, you know, like we said about New Bermuda by Deaf Heaven. I was like,
It's like one step forward, two steps back.
yeah, a little bit. I think kind of, again, we'll probably talk about this later. When you are just trying to give people what they want, inevitably you give them something shite, and because you don't really believe in it. So it's good that they haven't done that. Yeah, I think there are some really, you know, there are a few parts where this is quite. It's heavy, you know.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
rages,
definitely.
like, it
Definitely.
definitely is. But I mean, you know, their strength is in, I guess, kind of taking black metal parts. And I mean, there's Robert Smith's fingerprints are all over this record.
Oh yes.
And
It's all over Alcest.
as all over Alcest.
Their discography, not them. This wouldn't know.
Wouldn't know. But mate, I mean, there's, you know, that touch of black metal tone in the guitars. There's a song which I think is probably the centerpiece of the record, L'Île de Mort,
Oh yes, hello.
which is just
That
like,
weird electronic pulse one.
yeah, and it's gloriously kind of. It does a great job of. What I always find with a lot of these bands who are the kind of black gaze thing is they separate the metal and the kind of indie shoegaze elements from each other. Feel quite separate. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
They very rarely, you know, they'll have a bit which kind of, oh, that's a sort of shoegazy bit, and then it will just go double time and it will
Yeah.
be screaming.
Yeah.
And it's quite a good, quite an amazing skill for Alcest to be able to do a kind of black metal riff, but keep the shoegazy parts over the top of it.
Well, Alcest feels like an even more of a hybrid, like two liquids mixed together rather than two solid blocks of cheeseburger put together. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm very hungry.
Me too.
So, yes, so it sort of meshes together more liquid coherently. Thank you.
Yeah,
Jesus
that'll do,
Christ,
innit?
help me out. And yes, I totally agree. So at times, Alcest don't sound beautiful one moment and then heavy the next. They sound beautiful and heavy all at the same time.
Yeah.
They sound crushing. It's like being crushed with a velvet blanket. Fucking hell.
Wow. Which is also the fate of many of Remfry's dates over the last.
It's a hell of a way to go, ladies. Oh, Christ. Laughter from the box there.
Oh God. And again, second half of the record, I think is the strongest part.
I really like Protection and Sapphire, which are both the first part of the record. They're probably my favourites.
I think Sapphire's great. When I say the second half, I guess the first two are good, I think, but I think it gets, to me, this album gets stronger as it goes on. Spiritual Instinct. I mean, I think L'Île de Mort is the best song on it, but Spiritual Instinct, how it ends really, really well.
I mean, I don't have I
It's all good,
I don't
really,
disagree. It's all good. Yeah, it's all really good. It's all really good, like dark, driving, power pop done with metal guitars, basically, which is kind of what Alcest do, and you know, not even what they do, what they have done for a little while, I should probably say, because early Alcest is quite different. It's another good Alcest record. I'm seeing a lot of people go quite bonkers for it, and
Did you give it 9 out of 10 in the New Metal Hammer?
No, I gave it 8, but they might have bumped it up to a 9.
Oh, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't. Wouldn't have thought. I mean, why would they? But yeah, but I think
I definitely gave it 8. So if it's
okay,
got a
well
9,
maybe I just
they bumped
mislooked
it up.
at it. Maybe I just mislooked at it. But I think at this point, this sound has become totally accepted within our scene, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely by now.
So it's cool. Obviously, they're one of the sort of, as I said, the popularizers of this type of sound.
I was going to argue, are they not one of the originators? Are they
Well,
not one of the
yeah.
first?
Yeah, but yeah.
Lovely.
Originators, popularized. They're one of the biggest ones, aren't they?
Well,
they're
you
one of
could-
the first and one of the biggest.
I'm going to be pedantic here.
Go
You
on
could
then.
call Deaf Heaven a popularizer.
Yes, you could.
But you couldn't call them an originator.
No, you're quite right. Yeah,
Pedantry.
yeah.
My tummy is... Can you hear that?
I know.
It's my tummy rumbling. It probably isn't picked up on mic, so apologies. It's not going to be very interesting for people listening, but Jesus Christ.
Alcest album's good, isn't it?
It's really good. There's
Yeah.
not a lot else to say, but it's really good.
It is
You
good.
should listen to it. If you like
It
Alcest,
is
it's really good.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. Well, I think we've done that.
Yep. Yeah, let's move on.
There you go.
That felt below par for us, I have to
Well,
say.
I
but
just think
fine.
they're quite hard reviewing these bands, and they just release another good record which sounds like them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
And I
that is
don't
what it
have
is.
I'm going to fess up, so I don't have the context of the entire Alcest back catalogue to place it in, it's my third favourite of their 7 or whatever.
I don't know, it's my third or fourth favourite.
Right, you can't just say third because I said third.
Well, I prefer Kadama, definitely.
Okay.
Shelter's a sort of a different thing.
I'll tell you what
Shelter.
we should do. We should ask the Haggard Cat chaps.
Oh, the old Haggard
what they
Cat chaps.
think
I
about
bet they
Alcest.
know loads about Alcest, right, chaps?
Are you guys into Alcest?
Silence from the box.
So really not... That tells me that you're
I'm
not
not familiar with their work.
not familiar with their work.
Didn't think you would be.
Afraid not.
No? Not you, is it? Not very punk rock, is it?
No, it's just not. It's not straightforward enough.
Mm.
Sounds like there's too many bits for my liking.
Yeah. Quite a
How-
lot of bits in it.
How's the pictures coming along, chaps?
you want to see them?
Yes, please.
Why not? It'll be a treat for the
Please.
old YouTube.
Oh, big time.
YouTube.
from
Pass it-
memory, so don't take it personally.
Well, I'm going to take it quite personally.
Let's have a look. Okay.
Here we go.
Who's
This appears to be... That's me. Do you want to open your own one?
Why not?
There you
Why
go.
not? Okay. And I suppose we should describe this for people who are listening.
Right, well, there's two things here. One, my head is definitely shaped nicer than that. And it says... I don't know why I've got so many teeth as well. It says, "Hello, I hate everything, Stephen." And it's a PH, not a V. So and I'm naked as well. I look like a cock. I just look like a cock with a face. Is that how you think I look like I'm naked? Why haven't I got a shirt on? Why have I'm not taking my...
Hard and cool.
Come on.
Well, I do have a shirt on. I've got very long squiggly hair, nice
Yeah.
glasses. My nose is really bulbous. I'm not sure why. My lips are incredibly feminine. Incredibly feminine.
That doesn't look like you.
Yeah, it looks like me, bitch. That's absolutely me. And it says...
If you looked at that and you thought, who's the better looking one out of the two
Stephen
of us, they'd say you, and that is not accurate at all.
And my little message, I'm assuming I'm saying this is a speech bubble, is it, guys? I love atmospheric shite with no words, which is definitely accurate. So fair play, guys. That's really good. Maybe,
Right?
yeah, that's really, really good. It's good to see that you're using your time well in the old.
Listening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's
appreciate
fine.
that, guys.
Fine, no, I love it.
Appreciate that.
We should tweet. We'll tweet those out. I think. Do I have your permission to tweet that out? Steve?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll
Yeah,
tweet
yeah.
those out.
Go
Lovely
for it.
stuff. Can we keep those? Can we
They're
keep
gone.
those guys?
They're gone back in their
Fuck it.
stupid
They don't care.
box full of twats.
We're going back in the box now. Okay.
Yeah, all right,
The
see you in a
box full of
bit.
twats. See you later.
All right, next album we're going to talk about is Someone's Knocking by Mark Lanegan. This is the 11th album from the Mark Lanegan Band.
Yeah.
We reviewed his album with Duke Garwood last year, and we were very positive about it. In
good.
fact,
Golly gosh, I love that album.
we were very positive. We've kind of been universally positive about Mark Lanegan
Mm-hmm.
since we started the show because he's good.
Would you go for a night?
That's a good impression, that.
Thank you.
So Mark Lanegan has spoken about the influence of acts like Joy Division and New Order in the build-up to this record, and when it first started, I thought it was quite disorientating to hear that type of music mixed with this very sort of bluesy voice.
Just to keep on rolling.
Yeah,
yes, quite.
exactly.
I thought the idea of it's very 80s, this record, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, and actually I listened to it, I mean, don't say yet, but I listened to it, I thought, I think this is going to be a bit of Steve. We'll find that out in just a moment.
You will.
But, yes, it was a weird juxtaposition. I think on paper, the idea of like 80s sort of synthy stuff and, it's more than just synth, isn't it? Dark pop, Depeche Mode, goth
kind
stuff.
of,
Yeah,
post-punk.
The idea of that on paper with Mark Lanegan's voice sometimes is better than the execution on this record. Sometimes it's not, though. Sometimes it works incredibly well.
Well, I mean, who knew that what the world needed was this kind of 80s post-punk album with Mark Lanegan?
I know, yeah.
Not me, although you shouldn't really be that shocked, as, like you say,
It's a lot of things that you like. Yeah.
Never ever said anything bad about Mark Lanegan ever, and I fucking love all those bands that you just mentioned. Depeche Mode, Joy Division, New Order, Echo and the Bunnymen, like all that stuff. I fucking love that shit. So obviously, he just had to write some good songs, and I was going to be, hello mate, yes, good. But like I say, initially I wasn't sure. I mean, actually, kind of funnily enough, the opening song, Disbelief Suspension, is probably the worst song on the album, because it sounds like Dancing with Myself by Billy Idol. Dancing with myself. Do you know what I mean? It's really 80s. And
it took me a couple of listens to get into it. I now think it's a rollicking good opener, but certainly not the best song on the album. I don't think it's the worst.
I think it might be.
Not for my money, but that's opinions and ourselves and all that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, even into the second track. So the second track's called Letter Never Sent, and it made me sort of sit up a bit more. It's got kind of Eastern tinge. It's got a bit of a Susie and the Banshees influence in it as well. But I still wasn't totally on board at that point.
What it feels like you're getting at, and I do agree with this, if this is indeed what you're getting at, is this album takes a little bit get a bit of time to get going, doesn't it?
Takes a little bit to get going. Takes a little bit to get used to.
I agree.
Because it is a weird thing to hear Mark Lanegan in that context of that stuff.
I agree. It does take a few tracks to get going.
For me, it's the fourth track, this Dark Disco Jag, when I was like, that's full on electro gothic pop, really dark. He's got a lot of menace in his voice. Sounds like it was recorded down the dark alley outside a club with a neon sign in 1986. Do you know what I mean? Sounds like it should be something.
I was
from
one,
like
but yes.
Right. Well, I was only 6. I wasn't hanging out in those sort of places. But it doesn't sound like...
You were born in those sorts of places.
I know. Yeah.
I was born in the shadows.
And... But yeah, it was. I was like, that's wicked. That sounds like something that should be on a sort of like 80s video nasty.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was really good. And he sounds great on it as well. So that was the point where I was like, yeah, here we go. And then
it takes me just one more track.
Gazing
from the Shore.
Oh, it's brilliant.
What a song.
That just sounds exactly like Echo and the Bunnymen. You know that?
I didn't know that. Thank you. My reference point was it sounds like the last song on a John Hughes movie, except with Mark Lanegan singing.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Proper Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yes, I suppose. The only Echo Bunnymen album I've heard is that reinterpretation one, which is not the. Yeah, you need to give me more trade off of that. That song.
It's a great run of tracks. Then Stitch It Up is like sounds like
Stitch
New Order,
excellent.
And there's a song called Playing Nero, which is this like really great dream pop song with like a cowboy front in it.
The romantical, that could be in a remake of Weird Science if they ever did it, except they would never remake Weird Science because it'd be very problematic in the 21st century.
I'm sure they could find a way. But that's a great run of tracks. And then it comes to my personal highlight of the record, which is Penthouse High. Which is like kind of Head on the Door era Cure, like proper 80s pop. And I never thought I'd write that in conjunction with a Mark
Lanegan album. Yeah, there's ghosts inside this house.
Yeah.
Great little. There's ghosts inside this box. Maybe, who knows? The box I'm referring to is the one which is literally behind me. But yes, that is a wicked song. That's 6 minutes long. 6 minutes long, that song, and it does not feel like it.
No, it doesn't.
Really, yes. I mean, when this record is good, I think it's really, really good. There are a few tracks on it. I'm a bit ashamed to say I don't agree with you on the dark disco jag, although I understand why you like it.
Right, okay.
I'm just
I
not a
like
big
it,
fan
yeah.
of it. Night Flight to Kabul doesn't really do an awful lot. There's a few. What I'm getting at, it's 14 tracks. It's 56 minutes. Too fucking long, Steve.
It is.
Too fucking long.
You could shave a couple off for sure.
I mean, I don't even want it to become my catchphrase, but it kind of has done, hasn't it? It's too long.
I mean, I think the last track ends really well, but that is kind of indicative of how I got to at some point in the album. There's a song called
Last track's wonderful. Yeah.
Two Bells Ringing at Once.
Yeah.
But the start, it sounds like bloody Simple Minds. And I was like, whoa, hold on. Let's not go too crazy. You know, Echo and the Bunnymen, New Order, Joy Division, that's all good. Don't start sounding like Simple Minds.
But overall, it's a good.
But overall,
it's a great ender.
Overall,
Great
it's
ender.
really good. And it's just the piano. When the piano comes
Yeah.
in, he starts to sound, it sounds more like a Mark Lanegan song
Yeah.
than probably anything else on the rest of the record.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes, I think that's accurate, definitely. I mean, I think it's brilliant that, this is his 11th solo studio album. We're not even including Screaming Tree stuff. We're not even including
Stuff he did with
stuff he
Isabel
did
Campbell.
with Isabel Campbell, Duke Garwood, the Gutter Twins, which, if you've never heard the Gutter Twins album, is fucking amazing. The one he did with Greg Dooley from Afghan Wigs. He's done so much stuff, and he's touching on something which he's never quite done before, and 80% of it he does extraordinarily well, in my opinion. If 3 to 4 songs, if this was 10, 11 songs and 42, 43, 44 minutes, I'd be hailing this as like one of his coolest experiments and one of his best albums. For me, I still prefer kind of like stuff like Bubblegum and Whiskey from the Holy Ghost and Scraps at Midnight, but this is a really cool, several years. I think his career started in 1984, so 35 years into a career, he's still doing stuff that he hasn't done before.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
I think it's great.
Yeah. It's very, very
A
good.
good and surprising album by an artist who's kind of worked out how to grow old gracefully.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Which brings us on to Refused, I guess, doesn't it? Anyway, that's Someone Knocking by Mark Lanegan. It's really good. I think,
very good, yeah.
as a committed fan of 80s kind of gothic, electro pop, post-punk music, I think I like the majority of the songs on it. I wouldn't disagree that maybe you could shave it down a little tiny bit.
Yeah,
but
I'm talking 3-4 songs maximum.
Yeah, but I think when it gets going, this record, the parts that are brilliant are fucking brilliant.
Agreed.
Really, really brilliant.
Yeah. Bit more editing next time, Mr. Lanegan.
Yeah, just a little bit, just a
little
smidgen. And whether he will continue down this road of doing that, we don't know.
Or listen to this.
Yeah, or listen to this. Who knows? But I'd be, I think it's. I kind of hope he does go. I hope he doesn't carry on with it actually, because I think this sits alone in his back catalogue. And if he was to make another one like it, I'd be like, you've done that.
I don't think he will. I think he is like Nick Cave. I think he's one of these artists who just does different stuff every time, and 90% of the time it's really good. He's just one of those brilliant artists. So fair play, Mr. Lanegan.
Good.
We love you.
Lads, are you into Mark Lanegan at all? Screaming Trees, any of that?
I love Mark Lanegan.
Yeah.
Mate, this record.
You'll like this.
It's very interesting.
I've listened to half of this record so far.
What are you
What
saying?
are you saying so far?
It confused me at first.
Yeah.
And that's why I've only made it halfway through. But I really like the sounds of what you guys are saying. I'm probably gonna give it another go.
I think just give it a couple of goes, because at first it absolutely is a bit like, what are you doing? Yeah. But the fact that someone can do that 35 years into their career is fucking awesome, isn't it?
Absolutely.
For sure. All right.
Actually, I would like, if this is okay, I'd like Matt. Is Tom about as well? I don't know if Tom's.
Tom's in this box.
Is Tom about?
What I'm saying is, I know that you have quite a few things to say about this next record that we're going to talk about, and I feel like there's going to be a deluge of hate headed for my direction, which I need someone to.
Me to deflect.
I need help deflecting it, I think. So if you don't mind staying where you are you comfortable there?
No.
Okay, fuck it. Let's go into it then.
Go ahead.
Refused, War Music, is the 5th studio album from the Swedish Agit Punks. The second record since their 2012 reformation, with the last one being 2015's Freedom.
2012 Reformation, which both you and I constantly go on about those gigs at the Forum as two of the best shows we've ever seen in our lives.
Incredible gigs. Until Trent Reznor rocked up at South Bank Centre last year, I would have said the best gig I've ever seen was Refused at the Forum. Obviously, The Shape of Punk to Come is a
Quite
masterpiece.
Good. Yes.
And one of the most important records ever made by any band ever.
The album that got me into hardcore.
The album that got you into hardcore. Freedom, on reflection, Remfry. What were your thoughts on Freedom? I think we sort of touched on it a little bit.
I think Freedom was an enormously brave album and kind of almost the best thing they could have done in a weird sort of way. It is huge. There are huge flaws with it. I actually re-listened to it for the first time in a little while in relation to this album, and I'm going to say right now, just to jump off now, that I think that War Music is better than Freedom, after A being the two. But having said that, I think Freedom is more experimental, and I just think a lot of they released a record which no one wanted with Freedom, but the thing is sometimes it's really, really, people who wanted Refused back wanted Shape of Punk to Come Part 2 probably, and Refused came back 17 years later and released this weird alternative rock record which had like disco bits in it.
Much more in common with the International Noise Conspiracy.
Yeah.
This is the comparison I always make. When Refused split up and Dennis went and formed the International Noise Conspiracy, a completely different band to Refused.
Yes.
Probably the best thing that he could have done at that point.
Yes, more of a garage band, really.
Definitely more of a garage band. Had a lot of kind of 60s vibes to it as well.
A lot of Stooges.
And kind of classic rock and roll as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Great band.
Really good band. Like kind of the first three International Noise Conspiracy records, I think, are
Survival Sickness
really brilliant.
Yeah,
really good. And I was kind of glad that Refused came back, and on reflection, I was excited by the idea of a new Refused album in 2015 because they had been so good, they had been so exemplary on their return. Absolutely, at that point, I was thinking this is the perfect way to reform, especially when the story of how Refused got back together and what had happened to them post The Shape of Punk to Come coming out. It was I can't think of another band who had gone away having never even bothered, even the sort of smaller parts of the rock press, even the sort of punk press, to not be bothered with at all in any way, and then over time become this phenomenal cult band. And to come back and sort of live up to the hype, I guess, and the expectation of how great people wanted them to be, people that had never seen them, never heard them back in the day, like didn't even know they existed. I got into them probably 6 months after they split up. I got hold of The Shape of Punk to Come then, and I was absolutely gutted. So obviously I was delighted when they reformed, and I was looking in old episodes, old issues of Kerrang and Metal Hammer to find, like, New Noise was on a Metal Hammer CD.
Right.
That is the only thing. And I think they had a new band piece about them, which was like a quarter of a page big in an old Metal Hammer. I don't recall them ever being interviewed in Kerrang. They were reviewed at the Fuck Reading Festival at Brixton Academy, where they supported fucking Rikers and Exploited, and they were the opening band, and they got booed off stage apparently because of Beatles haircuts.
Right. I remember they played the Red Eye in Camden.
Yeah, something like that.
And
Dagger.
To be clear, when I say I remember, I mean someone told me, because I did not remember this. But they played the Red Eye in Camden, and from people who were there were like 20, 30 people there, kind of thing. And all that kind of.
So it wasn't quite the same as I think At the Drive-In formed around that time, and it wasn't the same sort of thing. We're At the Drive-In on the front cover of Kerrang.
Absolutely not, no.
So not the same thing at all. And so I was like, great, good for Refused to coming back. It will be difficult for them to release a record, and for them to release a record which, like you say, lent far more towards the International Noise Conspiracy than it did The Shape of Punk to Come, to me was a good idea, because that was something that Dennis had been doing over a longer period. It was obviously something that he was comfortable with. It was obviously something that he felt he was, that he was good at, and it was something that felt like a natural extension of the type of music that they as a band have been playing. Obviously, it was a bit heavier, and there were other touches of what Refused used to do in that record. Ultimately, though, 4 years down the line, I don't think that record has aged particularly well. I don't think it's a great record. I think it's quite an average record.
I don't go back to it very often, and as I say, I listened to it for the first time in a good while, listening to it alongside this war music. And yes, I was surprised at how some of it hadn't dated all that well, which when you consider how well Shape of Punk's Come's dated is quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yes.
I mean,
I wonder if I should bring Matt in super quickly here, because I do know that you adore Freedom, don't you?
I really loved that album when it came out.
Right. How do you feel now?
It was kind of like it, because obviously I was already a huge fan of Refused. Like, Shape of Punk to Come is one of the most important albums of all time, one of my favorite albums of all time. But I was real careful with it not to have any expectation, because that'd be really foolish.
Yeah.
Kind of ever want someone to follow up that album, because I don't think it's possible to follow up that album. Even if they hadn't just been coming back after some time away, I think even if they were doing like 2 years later an album, they wouldn't have been able to follow that. But I liked the idea of them just changing genre and being like, we're a dad rock band now. Like there were bits like that sound kind of like Led Zeppelin inspired, which I loved, like more acoustic-y things. Like there was one track in particular that sounded like Aerosmith, which is always good in my eyes. But no, I liked it. I liked that angle. I did listen to it again recently, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, I think you're right. It hasn't stood up to the test of time.
Yeah. The first time the alarm. I mean, obviously, I have said pretty much every week since I've had this record how I feel about it, and what I've not really had the chance to expand on it particularly, and so I'm glad that I'm getting the chance to kind of expand on it now. What I will say about it is what I like and dislike about it has changed and continues to change as I continue to listen to it. The more and more I listen to it, so I don't think this is quite going to be the hatchet job that many people expect it to be. But the first time alarm bells started ringing in my head was when Dennis said, we wanted to make the record that people wanted us to make after Shape of Punk to Come. Now,
he said this on the Swim podcast, the Daniel P. Carter podcast.
Now, to me, that is not a reason to make a record. That is, and straight away what I would say is, I think that is the idea and the fingerprints of that are all over war music. This, to me, feels like an album second-guessed and made by committee, an album made out of a sense of duty rather than a sense of inspiration. And I guess in a nutshell, that is the kernel of what my argument will be as to why I think this record is a big disappointment.
I think it was very worrying when hearing Dennis say that they were going to basically now make the record that people wanted them to make, because that's always a bit of a worrying sign. But putting the two albums together, putting Freedom together with War Machine, I do just think that this is I do think it's a more interesting, better. I don't even know about more interesting. I suppose in a way it's less interesting than Freedom, but I do think it's a better record than Freedom. I do think Freedom's a more interesting record, but I think this is more straight down the line. I don't think it is a straight down the line record per se, especially in the world of hardcore when you've got all sorts of things, but it's not straight down the line compared to, say, Terror. But it's more straight down the line than Freedom is.
Yeah, but I mean, you say that it's not as straight down the line as Terror. I mean, for Refused, and unfortunately this context does exist. Unfortunately for Refused, I think yes it is. I think most of this record sounds like a YouTuber doing an impression of Refused. It sounds like Jared Dines going, and then Refused sound like this, don't they? And that's fine for, like, you know, if people do an impression of David Bowie, they go, and David Bowie does sound like that. But David Bowie's written a bunch of absolutely fucking glorious songs and has done lots of different things throughout his career. So many of the riffs, so many of the patterns on this record feel like people who are, the whole thing feels to me like a band who are desperately puffing and panting to be able to keep up with the thing that they did over 20 years ago. It's like listening to Lars Ulrich play Whiplash now. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think they sound tired on this record, though.
Oh, mate, I think they sound so... Okay, one of the conversations we had before we were recording this was you said to me, and again, this is probably, we're going to argue about dynamics. You said to me, this is a more dynamic record than, because I'm not even going to, you said to me like, oh, don't just come on and go, wow, it's not as good as a Shape of Punk to come. I'm saying to you, it's not as good.
I did say that.
You did say that. I'm going to say it's not as good as Songs to Fan the Flames of Discontent. Now, Songs to Fan the Flames is not is a good record.
It's a good record.
Really
It's a
good
decent
record,
yeah.
right? But you know, Refused made a few records and the kind of EP collection pre that record, where they're not a good band. They're not, you know, they're finding their feet. Those albums are not really worth listening to. There's nothing of any genuine kind of interest on those records, really. Like, if we're being super brutal about it.
You're talking about everything pre-Songs
to Fan the Flames. Nothing from any of that period of their career really gives you any kind of indication of what they were going
about to happen
to do.
Absolutely
And
not.
even on Songs to Fan the Flames, I don't think there's any real huge indication they're about to do that.
No,
right?
I agree.
Songs to Fan, if they'd split up after Songs to Fan the Flames, there would be no clamour for a Refused reunion now. There wouldn't, right? We are not talking about, and that it's a really good record, but it's not a Damaged. It's not London Calling. It's not, the Bronx 2. It's not Grey Britain. It's not one of the kind of, you don't go fuck me. That punk rock, like, that is what punk rock should sound like, right? But it's still a very, very good record.
Yeah.
I don't think War Machine comes close to capturing the energy, the spark, and even the ingenuity and the drop in. I mean, what is it? I've written down here. I've written a little bit about this. If you listen to Return to the Closet on that record, and then listen to anything in War Machine music, you listen to how quick the bass sound, how quickly those basses picked, how much fury and anger, and how much kind of pace and energy is in that, and then how the guitars attack the bass when the guitars come in, and then how quickly everything drops out. Now, you were talking about dynamics. To me, that's dynamism, right? To be able to do that and then drop it out so quickly and it go quiet. Like, yeah, okay, it's a trick that a lot of hardcore bands do, but it sounds fucking great. It sounds fucking great 28 years later on Songs to Fan the Flames. And there are moments on this where they do similar stuff and you can just see it coming a mile off. You can feel it coming a mile off. It just doesn't have the same level of energy. There's, nothing attacks as hard on this record as It's Not Okay from Songs to Fan the Flames. And that's the rhythm change in that's 50 seconds long.
Unfair thing to, would you expect?
How is that an unfair thing
because
to say?
Songs to Fan the Flames was 23 years ago.
Right.
So it's very unlikely that a band is going to attack with the same ferocity that they did on an album 23
But they're
years
still
ago
trying to. This album doesn't do anything apart from try and do that.
I don't.
This isn't like Mark Lanegan where we're going, oh, he's bringing in 80s. If
I don't know, a song like
if hold on, if someone like, let's pick, I don't know. The reason people don't like something like, I don't know, Death Magnetic, right? When people put Death Magnetic next to Ride the Lightning, those comparisons still get made. It doesn't mean Death Magnetic is a bad album necessarily, but you do go like, guys, knock the fucking fast shit on the head because you can't do it anymore. And when you listen to Songs to Fan the Flames and you listen to this, unfortunately for Refused, and I'm sorry that this context does exist, that album is so important and so great and so revolutionary that, you can't even, but it's given them this kind of holy status, right? And it means that they mean something to a lot of people. They mean a lot to me, right? I'm not happy that I don't like this record. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like, oh, hooray, great, I can slag off Refused. I don't want that. Like, System of a Down, Rage Against the Machine, At the Drive-In, those bands that were really energetic. It may be a bit harsh on Rage Against the Machine because it's not Rage Against the Machine, but if you consider Prophets of Rage, consider how Prophets of Rage sound, how boring that record is compared to the first Rage Against the Machine record, and how it's not just like You're not fucking Motley Crue. You're not Kiss. You can go squeeze your fat ass into some pair of spandex and go and play to a bunch of old floppy bingo winged housewives, and they go, yeah, we have a few WKDs and fucking go home. Like, that's not what those bands stood for. Refused actually used to stand for something. And you listen to this and you go, what do you stand for? Apart from being another bunch of bloated, ploddy, boring musicians desperately trying to tell yourselves that you're still capable of doing this thing that you are just not capable of doing anymore.
The reason that I disagree with that is because no one sounds like Refused except Refused.
I don't think Refused sound like Refused on this record.
I think, but one of your criticisms is they're trying to sound too much like the old days of Refused, and then you're saying I don't think they sound enough like Refused.
I don't think they're capable of. I don't want a crap version of something which is really, which uniquely exists. And I think that, you know, freedom, whether you enjoyed it or whether it works for you, or whether it doesn't or not, it's something different. Faith No More didn't do that. When Soul Invictus is not coming out and trying to do the real thing.
Yep.
They're not trying to write epic. You can't do it anymore, except that you can't do it anymore. And yes, like no one else sounds like Faith No More, but Faith No More found a way to age into this sort of latter part of their career where it doesn't sound like, oh God, this is embarrassing. And we said it on the phone when we were talking about The Shape of Punk to Come. Some of the lyrics on The Shape of Punk to Come are pretty
not very good.
Are crap, right? And we were talking about with Matt last week about how sloganeering in music back in the day, the political sloganeering of bands like Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down were amazing, but if you just took those words without the anger and the fire and the ingenuity of what that music was doing, they'd sound a bit trite.
Well, I used the example.
I've got a bone to pick with capitalism and a few to break.
Yeah, which on the beginning of that record sounds absolutely vital and just like pumps you up. But if you take it out of context, it sounds stupid.
Yeah. And then you put it, the kind of the lyrics on this, because the music is just not up to it. It makes them sound a bit stupid.
To me, there is one minor embarrassing moment on this record.
If you tap me, you're a weapon.
Which is the one bit that everyone's talking about. If you hear this, you're a weapon. And to be honest with you, from Turn the Crass, it's not even the phrase "if you hear this, you're a weapon" that's embarrassing. I think it's the execution of it, because the song.
It's a beatdown as generic as any beatdown that you ever slag off from any metalcore band ever.
I actually, if anything,
Heart of a Coward would throw that beatdown in the bin.
If anything, I think they try to do something different and just fail. I think the song just stops, and then it sounds like it's been tagged on the end. That's the issue with it. And it actually, not only does it sound like it's been tagged on the end, it sounds like it's been Pro Tooled onto the end, because it's not even in the same. It's in a completely different tempo. It's a different tempo. I don't think it's a different time signature, but it does just sound tacked on, and it sounds very kind of like, where has that come from? And it lasts about 50 seconds and then it's gone. And it is a bit of a bizarre. I don't even have an issue with the phrase or the phrasing or the way that it's sung or anything like that. It is just the manner of that just suddenly appears, and it's just a bit like,
but nothing lyrically really inspires me on this record.
I will admit that it is full of a lot of
kind of empty
sloganeering.
And the sloganeering is empty because I feel like the music surrounding it doesn't give it any gravitas. That's the problem. I mean,
that's what I disagree with, though. I really like some of these songs.
Okay. When you think of what Svalbard say, I mean, mate, we talked about the Mendlingers album last week. America, You're Freaking Me Out says more in that 3.5 minutes than this entire record, and it's not even a political song.
I do agree with that. I don't think the lyrical content is brilliant on this record. I don't think it's embarrassing. I told you actually over the phone. A journalist friend of mine, Simon Clark, I'll shout you out. Heavy Blog is Heavy Blog. Said, I've never heard a protest record which has so little to say, and I can't disagree with that. But just in terms of the songs, I'm hopefully going to go and see Refused next week at Brixton Academy.
No, they've been moved, mate. They've been downgraded to Shepherd's Bush.
Oh, is it Shepherd's Bush?
Yeah, which will be better, to be fair. Yeah.
Probably will be better, to be honest. But I'm hopefully going to go and see that. And And, you know, I'm going to shake my absolute arse off when stuff like Violent Reaction comes on, or I Want to Watch the World Burn. I mean, that has that like funky edge that Refused have, which no other hardcore band really does as well as them. And if we're getting more Refused, it's not Shape of Punk to come good, but I also think it's kind of, you're making a rod for your own back if you're going to expect it to be Shape of Punk to come.
But I don't.
No,
I don't.
I
don't expect it to be Shape of Punk to come. I don't want it to be Shape of Punk to come. I don't want it to try and be Shape of Punk to come.
And you think this is trying too much to be Shape of Punk?
No, I think this is trying to be Songs to Fan the Flames. I don't think it's even capable of even pretending like it's even worth mentioning those two, Shape of Punk to come and this in the same breath. It's not even like. Just not in a million years.
I'm aware of Matt in his hole, and I feel like
Go on, Matt. What I will say, do you know what? Because the thing is, right?
Right, it's got one more thing to say.
One more thing, because I've said all the bad stuff about it, right?
Yeah.
I think it starts quite well, right? Rev 001 is a decent opener. I don't think it's as good as Electra from Freedom, but I was like, that's quite a decent opener. It's still quite good. Violent Reaction, you mentioned before, is essentially the same song, but it's still quite
Violent
good.
Reaction is a good song.
Yeah, Violent
that
Reaction
last
is a good
riff
song.
is fucking banging.
It's a good song. And then actually, I think the last song on it, I think the Infamous Left is quite good. It's got quite a decent change of pace here and there, which I like. And then Economy of Death is really good.
Death is brilliant.
It's really, really good.
Brilliant.
It feels like the kind of the damage has been done by everything that happens in the middle of that. But it's got this kind of double bass part, and it's the only time. What I will say is, listen to the rest of this album and then listen to that song, because it's the only time where it's even got a little bit of a Metallica feel in it.
Yeah,
where they
there's
go
some
full
thrash.
metal. Yeah, some full kind of
thrash
metal
riffs in
stuff
that.
in there, and I like it. It's it's a little cheesy in places, as a lot of these songs are, but that's probably my favourite song on the record as it ends. Right.
Oh, I might agree with you actually.
Yeah, it's a really, really good song. So this album is not a complete and utter fucking disaster.
It's not a 4 out of 10.
No, it is a 4 out of 10. It is a 4 out of 10. Like,
I'm saying that because Steve gave it 4 out of 10 in Melham.
Well, and I stand by that. I think it is a 4 out of 10. But a 4 out of 10 isn't an absolute, like a 2 out of 10 is an absolute disaster.
Sure,
a 4 out of 10 is a below average record. Now, if a young band released this as their debut album, right, I wouldn't be excited by it. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, we have to cover this or whatever. But I would probably listen to it and go, there's a couple of songs in that if they really, really work hard, they might make a decent second album and maybe a pretty good third album, but I can't ever see them being like a great band. Mm-hmm. This is Refused we're talking about, and that's how I feel about it. So, I don't think this is an absolutely diabolical album. I'm incredibly, incredibly disappointed by how below average it is, but it's not, I've been sort of going, it's rubbish. I mean, it's not the Blink-182 album. Like, it's not, it's not absolute utter shit, but it's just very, very, very uninspiring, and it's very subpar, and it's very below average. And for me, for a band as good as Refused, I think that is a massive shame that they've allowed themselves to tarnish their legacy to the point where I don't know if Refused are a good band. I think maybe they were just a band who, I read, again, talking about David Bowie, I read something about David Bowie once where he said apparently someone called him a genius, and he said, I think nobody's a genius, but sometimes people are touched by genius, right? I think Refused wrote The Shape of Punk to come with nothing to lose. A bunch of pissed off, angry, young, disillusioned kids who went, fuck it, we got one last shot to do something, let's just fucking do it. The albums before that weren't great. Songs to Fan of Flames is really good, but the albums before that weren't great. They've come back, they've made 2 albums, none of them are great. Are Refused actually a good band?
I think they are. Yes. Go on, Matt. Yeah, Matt. Come on, come in.
Or a great band then. They're a good band, I'll give you, but a great band. I'm not sure that they're a great band. I think they're a band with one great record, but I'm not sure that they're actually a great band. After this.
I disagree.
Go on, Matt.
I think they're a great band.
I mean, as a caveat, I've listened to this album twice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I've listened to this album from the perspective of not expecting to be impressed by it.
Mm-hmm. As did I, because I had this one in my ear telling me it was awful for fucking 6 weeks.
Well, I mean, I didn't have that.
Yeah.
So what were the lead 2 singles of this were Revolution 1, and what was the second?
That was Blood Red, which I think is an absolute stench pot.
So that was Blood Red and Revolution 1. And the first, I didn't look at any press from it. I didn't expect anything. But the first thing I really saw after those 2 songs being released was there was this really embarrassing, record label reel that was played over social media, my Instagram, it was a little 1 minute long video, and it's kind of Refused, and then it was Revolution 1, and then it had Dennis going Revolution 1, and then the riff, and
Right.
it's and Red Hot, and it was and then he sang that song title, and the same riff happened. And I heard that and went, oh, this is going to be dog shit.
As in, then he sang "And Blood Red."
Yeah.
Oh.
They're the same song.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was the label had kind of picked these 2 bits of the song that really showcased that there's not going to be any eclecticism
Yes.
in what this is going to be whatsoever. And I heard it and went, okay, right, that's what that is. But so I went in with that kind of frame of mind, and I've not really kind of listened to it too critically yet because I've just a couple of lessons in. But I had a really good time listening to it.
Yeah.
And when the singles kind of popped out of the whole album as a whole, I was like, yeah, that's how they should work.
Yeah.
That works now.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
There's loads of really fun stuff on there. I know you've already brought up, was it Turning the Cross or Turning the Crass?
Turn the Cross is
The
just shite. I
End
think.
of that song is bollocks, but the start of that song's great.
Yes, I
And
agree.
it's got a
Well, that's
really
it,
wicked
isn't it?
riff
Isn't
in
I
it.
agree.
Yeah, no, I actually do agree with that. I think the start of that song, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And then it just it's the sort of thing that Partway Drive would fart out in their sleep.
I mean, I'm obviously far more on Matt's side than I am on yours with this one, I'm afraid, mate. But what I will say that is really, really interesting. Well, I like this record. I don't love it, but I think it is in fact, I'd go as far as to say I think it's a very good record in places. What's really interesting about it, you do know that I love to pop on the old Metacritic from time to time.
Oh, mate, don't worry. We've got a review that I'm about to mention at the end.
Okay.
That will go on.
Well,
I've seen Metacritic. I know it's got 96 or something.
no, it's at the. I checked it earlier today, and as we recorded this, and it's 89 out of 100 on Metacritic. That's only based on 7 reviews, so it's not very many, but that is very high. As things stand, Metacritic have a top 100 albums of the year. This is number 12, between Dave, the Mercury winning.
Which
prize guy,
this is so.
and Lingua Ignota's Caligula.
Is it really? Wow. Okay.
It's
Fucking
above Lingua Ignota's. Now, let me just point out. And now, Metacritic is, in a way, Metacritic's a nonsense, and it's just an aggregate of critical reviews and stuff like that. But it's kind of interesting to look at it from a sort of factual point of view. Blah blah blah. I find it interesting that this record is clearly being received extremely well, but I would probably argue better than it probably deserves to be, even though I like it a lot.
The NME, guys. The NME.
Careful, they probably want to be in favour with the NME. If anything, they've got a record coming out soon.
Keep quiet about this. 5 out of 5 in the NME, and the NME's review said that this is the best album Refused have ever done. The best album Refused have ever done. Now, I've heard some shit in my life before. I've heard some fucking shit, Bocassa are the best band since Slipknot or whatever fucking absolute crap you want to fucking throw out, right? I've heard some reviewers say some stupid shit before. But I have to say, hip hop isn't music. That was another one from Remfry.
I didn't say that. I was really annoyed when I heard that last week. I said hip hop does not have what I like about music. I didn't say it wasn't music.
Joe Nunn came up to me at Killswitch Engage and went, I remember when Remfry said that hip hop isn't music.
I didn't say that.
He didn't say that.
I'm so annoyed. That's out of context.
It was really.
That's very out of context. And
Yeah,
I'm
it
very
was.
annoyed.
Absolute
I'm
stitch
listening to the episode last week. I was in the airport. I'd had no fucking sleep, and that came on. I was fucking furious. I was like, you
not
taking
really
me?
mucking around.
No, I was still. Well, it didn't sound like it at the time. I was bloody annoyed. Anyway,
I said it's
go
so
on.
throwaway. But anyway, the NME. This is the best thing Refused have ever done.
Oh, it's
I mean,
preposterous.
you
Absolutely
are
preposterous.
taking the piss. You should have your ears legally shot into the sun.
Careful. All right.
Right. And And that to me is like, I get it, guys. We all want to like the new Refused album. We all want Refused to be great, and we all want them to have a great new record. And hooray, this one's heavier, whatever. But review the fucking record. Don't review the band. Like that. All those reviews, they smack of, oh, we'd better be nice to Refused because they made The Shape of Punk to Come. And the fact that they're now like going, it's better than The Shape of Punk to Come. It's just, you're talking rubbish.
Karan gave it 4 out of 5. Q gave it 4 out of 5.
I mean, yeah. Q and the Enemy, like, if you're going to go to anyone about hardcore, definitely trust Q over me. Definitely.
But I mean, even classic rock. Classic rock.
Classic rock are famously big on hardcore.
My point. So classic rock gave it 7 out of 10. But my point is, for some reason, this record, and actually, no, I do see why, because I think this is a good record. We just submitted.
Out of 10, what would you give it out of 10?
It's definitely a 7, possibly approaching an 8, but
see,
it's probably a 7.
Strikes me as you ain't going to be listening to this in a year's time.
I don't know.
And all these people that are telling you now how great this record is, they ain't going to be listening to this record in a year's time.
I think
Mark my fucking words.
To be honest with you, I think you're probably right. I just don't think it's as bad as you think it is. And I think we have something that I like to call the Stephen Hill syndrome here.
What's that?
The Stephen Hill paradox, if you will, which is basically when there's a band that you absolutely adore and they let you down so badly, rather than it being a disappointing record, it's actually the worst thing that has ever happened in your
Name
life.
another
At
time
the drive-in.
happened. That At the Drive-In album is fucking terrible. What
That
are you on
At the
about?
Drive-In album is not a very good album at all.
No.
I will absolutely stand by you with that, and I would even go as far as say it's probably like a 5 out of 10. The way you describe it, it sounds like that album.
I think this is better than the At the Drive-In.
Oh,
record.
well, thank God for that, because yes, it is. But I think sometimes there's, and this isn't me like having a go or anything like that, but I think sometimes there is like a point where a band comes along that meant so much to you and then fuck it up so much.
But I think
for
that's
you.
all part of the context. I don't think you can review, I don't think you can just be like, I mean, the point is that band, they were meant, I'm just very disappointed that, I'm a naive idealist thinking that the bands who actually told me when I was a kid that they stood for something have ended up being, I mean, you look at System of a Down, the fucking money-grabbing twats that they are. And, do you know what I mean? It's just like...
A Surge never coming on the show. Thanks for that.
Well, I don't want them on the show. Split up and
I
go and do
want
something
Surge
else.
on the show.
No, I don't want them on the show.
Right,
Go
right.
split up. Do something else. Stop ruining download. Fuck off. Like... Oh, I've got a sore throat. I've lost my dog. I can't play. Just go. Don't play then. Go and work in fucking McDonald's. I don't care. And, and Rage Against the Machine, we're back to save the world with really ploddy riffs and two old blokes talking about drones. Like, no. And it's not, like I say, it's not the same as whoever from the 80s or the 70s. Like, AC/DC come back and you just go, they're not as fast as they used to be and they're sort of a bit old. But they've always been... they weren't built on this like we will fucking destroy the music industry.
So it's
Refused
down to
were.
Yeah, it's down
Refused
to
were like,
these-
let's destroy everything. Let's crush the music industry. Rage Against the Machine, let's crush the music industry. Oh, actually, no, we'll just sort of settle into our old age pipe and slippers bollocks. And it's just like that is insulting.
But were those
and
bands?
it's a real shame that that's happened.
Were those bands ever like that, or was that just the media playing that stuff up?
With Refused, do you think they were playing that up? Do you? They weren't
it's-
even in
it's-
the media.
It's a metaphorical question. It's not like I'm not actually claiming that as a thing, but I'm just asking as a sort of devil's advocate type of thing.
Definitely not. You can't.
Not
I mean,
with
Refused were not. And Rage Against the Machine shut down fucking the stock exchange for a day. Do you know what I mean? They like these boys are in here, and I'm sure, like I'm not being flippant. They are making whether we think it's silly or not. Like,
Oh, and we do think it's silly.
It really is, guys. It's really stupid. But I kind of admire the fact that you are at least have a strong.
Making a
as I always
statement.
say, like if you've got a really, really strong opinion and statement about something, and I just don't feel like this does. And I think those bands should be held accountable. They should be held accountable to higher standards than just your average common or garden band. I do believe that. You can call that the fucking Stephen Hill paradox if you want, but but I'm happy to take it because I think there are some.
It's fine.
You know,
It's just an observation. But I think
I don't think anyone else has done it, and
I'm still going to call it the Stephen Hill paradox.
well, you can call it that if you want. If you can disparagingly just dismiss genuinely relevant claims and sort of problems I have. If you just want to, like, do you know what I mean? But at least I know hip hop's music. So.
Didn't say that. So annoying. Yeah, I mean,
But again, mate, like you say, it's not. I really hate it, and I was like that. There are 4 good songs. I've given it 4 out of 10. I can think off the top of my head. There are 2 songs. First 2 songs, I think, I like the opener and I like the closer. I think the second track's pretty good. I think the second to last track's pretty good. Everything else, I don't like.
there's
Even
10 tracks on this record, isn't
10
there?
tracks.
So that's 4
4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. Is that how you do scores?
That's not how I do my scores, but I just like having just worked it out. Then it makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And especially with the If You Hear This You're a Weapon, like I liked that song up until that point came up, and I was like, oh god,
That is a shame.
so I feel like 4 out of 10 is absolutely. I'm not sure if the 2 that I quite like are worth a point each. It might be a 3.
I mean,
I think if I'm happy with a 4, I give it a 4.
I think this record is, you obviously disagree, but I think this record is relatively consistent throughout. It's 35 minutes. I don't think it's ever absolutely phenomenal and makes me rage the way that Shape of Punk to Come does, but I do think when it's good, it's pretty good, And
I've actually gone through track by track on my things with how I feel about every song. Like Malfire, thought it was going to be. There's a lot of. I thought this was going to be good because it had a good Eastern riff at the start, and then it was just paceless. Like the drumming on this. The drumming on this is mindless. Do you not think the drumming is like until the last track? You listen to that last track, and that is when you go, yes, it wasn't my imagination. It's the only time. It feels like that's been written as a single with a different drummer.
It's definitely the best song on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just to me, it just hammers home. And then when I listen to Songs That Fan the Flames after listening to this, I mean, it's absolutely night and day. And again, yes, you can go, well, you can't expect them to be as good and blah, 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 blah. But they're trying to do that. So, yes, I can. Sorry, guys. And look, I'm not happy about it. I fucking love Refused. I still like, despite all that and being like, Refused actually a good band. I mean, I've think so much like fucking love for them for so long that I can't just completely dismiss them. But I am, like I don't ever want to see it fucking at the drive-in ever. I've seen footage of that; it looks awful. I'm sure they'll be great live.
Yeah.
There'll just be a lot more piss breaks.
I think Refused are a great band because this came on, and even before Dennis started singing, I went, this is Refused. And I think that's
it. Came on. I thought this is Diane Abbott fronting Five Finger Death Punch. Is what I thought.
Good. I'm glad we got our episode title. We can fuck off now, can't we? One last
guys. Any final words on the Refused album?
Tom? I've only listened to it a bit. I can't really remember it.
Oh, fuck me.
Tom can't really remember.
I can't really remember it.
You're
It's got
sticking
no
a
notable
box in-
features for me at the minute.
Matt, is this how in-depth all of your conversations are going to be for the next however many hours?
It's been a few hours now. Like
We've made this podcast a lot longer than usual just so we could sort of hang around with you longer, to be honest.
Yeah. We were a bit concerned about you.
I'm hanging by a thread and a little bit worried because I think we're not even like a quarter of the way through yet.
Nope.
You might be.
We might, well, who knows?
Yeah, you don't know, do you?
I don't know.
What do you plan to do with the rest of your 23 hours in the box?
Silent meditation.
23?
Silent meditation. Okay. Anything else?
23?
I don't know. We might
Write the next album, I guess.
Oh, that's a good
Gonna be
idea.
heavily brick oriented, enclosed, trapped.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. We didn't really think this far ahead, to be honest. We said, oh, that's a thing that means that thing. Let's do that.
Oh.
And then, here we are a few hours later, and we totally didn't think this through, did we? We're just stuck in a box now.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with it.
There's things we want to do,
I mean, hence the analogy being brilliant for Brexit. We didn't really think about it, and look at us now stuck in a box.
Exactly right.
There you go.
Hey, guys, do you want to know, right? I don't think I've ever said this before. I didn't even vote in a referendum.
You
You absolute prick. Could have been you.
absolute prick.
I didn't. I was like, why am I making this fucking decision? What's it got to do with me?
Well,
Fucking
Quite
right.
right, yeah.
Well, it's your fault. Your vote counts for
I don't know,
2%,
do I?
doesn't it?
I don't know about this shit. I
'Cause of the
voted
Hill
for someone
paradox.
to do that for me. Why do I have to do it?
Yeah, well,
It's
canny
your
boy.
fault.
It is your fault.
Well,
Idiot.
right.
Blithering idiot. Look what you've done now, Hill.
Don't care about stuff like that, do I?
No wonder you don't like the new Refused album.
Yeah. I mean, Matt came on and brought on the live show and brought Robbie Williams. So I should have
That's
known
true.
you'd like the Refused album since you
Oh,
like
yeah.
terrible music and pointless political statements.
Yeah, fair enough.
So bit of you, innit?
Of which this is one.
Good luck with the rest of your day, lads.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully see you soon.
Good luck. Am I allowed to talk about the album? I'm not, am I?
I mean, you can tell everyone it's mint.
It's fucking great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But you're not going to hear it till March next year, so
All right. Anyway, well, listen. Good luck, guys. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks for coming and seeing us.
That's all right,
Yeah,
mate. It's
we
been a
technically
very,
came to
very
you,
lovely
but that's
time.
fine.
Gone on a bit, haven't we? Anyway, next week we're going to be talking about the new albums from Swans,
Yes.
Une Misère,
Mm.
maybe Frail Body,
Maybe Frail Body, yeah.
maybe and Cunts have got a new album out.
Cunts.
No,
their debut album out.
Not Black Foxes. It's another band. Anyway,
Goodness sake.
go over to musicism.net and you get 25% off all courses with the code RIOT in the checkout, and we shall see you next week. Bye, Haggard Cat. Bye.
Bye.